Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and I'm very pleased today to welcome you to the launch of the Platform for the Coal Regions in Transition. I would like to thank the President Jean Rotner, President of the Région du Grand Est, for hosting this event in the hemicycle of his region. A region also was a former coal mining region, and therefore a very symbolic place to be here this afternoon. Let me also welcome Commissioner Crețu, in charge of regional policies, Minister Statakis, and the Undersecretary of State in the Ministry of Poland, Mr. Kutika. Unfortunately, due to the weather conditions in Brussels, a certain number of distinguished guests will not be here this evening with us. So I would like to apologize in their name to Vice President Šefčovič, Commissioner Cañete, and also MEPs Buzek and MEPs Van Bremt, and the Secretary of State of Slovakia, Mr. Ferenc. I can tell you that they are morally here present with us today. They convey to you their warmest regards and wishes for this platform. They are really sorry, but their support for this initiative is very strong, as they were all supposed to be here this afternoon. Without much ado, I would like to pass the floor to Jean Rotner, the President of the Région du Grand Est, who has very nicely welcomed all of us today. Please, President, merci.
Merci beaucoup. Madame la Commissaire européenne pour la politique régionale, chère Corina Crețu, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, Mesdames et Messieurs les parlementaires européens, Mesdames et Messieurs les présidents de région, Mesdames, Messieurs. Il me revient aujourd'hui de vous accueillir à la Maison de la Région et je veux vous y souhaiter la plus cordiale bienvenue. Souvent, on prête à Jean Monnet cette phrase pleine de contrition. Si c'était à refaire, c'est par la culture qu'il faudrait recommencer l'Europe. Il n'a évidemment jamais rien dit de tel et pensé encore moins. Jean Monnet a commencé l'Europe exactement là où il fallait le faire, c'est-à-dire en créant la communauté européenne du charbon et de l'acier. Parce qu'en 1951, 6 ans après la guerre, alors qu'il fallait tout reconstruire, des quartiers, des sites industriels et des villes entières, ce dont les Européens manquaient le plus, c'était d'énergie et de matériaux. Les pères fondateurs avaient compris une chose. La politique, ce n'est pas de la théorie ni de l'abstraction. Ce n'est pas de l'idéologie, ni même de la passion et du pur sentiment. La politique est cette chose très prosaïque, terre à terre, parfois bien ingrate, qui consiste à apporter des réponses concrètes aux besoins et des solutions efficaces aux problèmes. Qu'on le veuille ou non, l'Europe est née comme ça, au fond de la mine et dans les hauts fourneaux, avec les sidérurgistes et les gueules noires. Elle n'a pas été faite, l'Europe, pour les grandes idées. Celles-ci venaient de lui causer les pires dommages. Elle a été faite pour répondre aux enjeux les plus urgents et relever les défis du temps. Voir aujourd'hui à Strasbourg l'Union européenne lancer sa plateforme des régions charbonnières en transition n'est pas un acte anodin. Il y réaffirme avec force l'idée d'une Europe des solutions, une Europe qui accompagne très concrètement chacun de nos territoires, chacune de nos régions, chacun de nos pays vers leur propre avenir. Lancer cette plateforme à Strasbourg a également beaucoup de sens. Longtemps, en France, le Grand Est a été une grande terre minière et une grande terre industrielle. Nous avons connu, dès les années 1970, 3 crises conjuguées qui ont remis en cause le charbon, la sidérurgie et le textile. Ce sont des crises qui ont remis en cause notre modèle de développement. Il a fallu s'adapter, redéployer vers d'autres activités la vocation industrielle de nos territoires, limiter la casse sociale, trouver des solutions innovantes pour transformer les friches minières. Tout cela ne s'est pas fait en un jour, il a fallu des décennies pour y arriver. Et nous y travaillons encore. Dans le nord lorrain, dans l'est mosellan, dans le bassin potassique d'Alsace, nous avons encore beaucoup à faire pour assurer la transition des territoires miniers vers de nouveaux modèles de développement. Il ne s'agit pas simplement de réparer les conséquences environnementales de l'activité minière et les effets sociaux de son arrêt. Il s'agit de replacer les territoires miniers dans de nouvelles perspectives de développement. Ce sont des projets lourds qu'il faut souvent conduire, puisqu'il faut tout à la fois assurer la renaturation des sites, leur réindustrialisation comme leur changement de destination. Ce sont des projets qui nécessitent la mobilisation de tous les acteurs publics, l'Union européenne, États, régions, collectivités territoriales. Nous avons conduit en Alsace, par exemple, la reconversion du bassin potassique et l'a mobilisé tout le monde. Nous conduisons la reconversion du Nord lorrain. Là encore, toutes les énergies contribuent à la transition, y compris les régions limitrophes de Belgique, du Luxembourg et d'Allemagne. Le Grand Est est la région française la plus transfrontalière. Nous possédons 40% des frontières terrestres de France. Elle nous ouvre du nord au sud, sur la Belgique, le Luxembourg, l'Allemagne, la Suisse. Et je sais que sur tous les grands enjeux de développement économique comme de développement durable, la réponse est transfrontalière, c'est-à-dire européenne. Je veux, et je le dis devant les éminents membres de la Commission européenne réunis ici, faire du Grand Est la région la plus européenne de France est mon ambition. Et le faire dans tous les domaines parce que nous avons besoin d'Europe, et d'une Europe incarnée, concrète, utile, une Europe des solutions. Mesdames et messieurs, on aurait cependant tort de ne s'attacher en matière de reconversion des bassins miniers qu'à l'efficience des politiques publiques que nous pouvons conduire. Parce que le charbonnage, c'est autre chose aussi. Ce sont des générations entières qui sont descendues au fond de la mine. En Lorraine, comme dans le bassin potassique d'Alsace, ils étaient français, italiens, polonais. Et chaque matin, quand ils prenaient l'ascenseur qui les conduisait jusqu'aux profondeurs de la terre, là où c'est sombre, suffocant et chaud, là où tout devient irrespirable, là où nul d'entre nous ne pourrait travailler chaque jour, ils y allaient, eux. Et ils n'étaient plus que des hommes qu'un seul et unique destin scellait. C'était un destin commun. Ce n'est pas le grand Stanislas, ce sont les mineurs de Lorraine et les mineurs d'Alsace qui ont appris à notre région tout entière des patronymes imprononçables quand on n'est pas polonais. Quand en 1980, Lech Walesa créa le syndicat Solidarnosc, ces mineurs furent les premiers à y contribuer. Ils le firent d'une manière ou d'une autre, en envoyant de l'argent, en gravant jusqu'au fond de la mine les premières paroles de l'hymne polonais. La Pologne vivra. Ce sont eux qui ont façonné l'Europe en renforçant les solidarités essentielles qui unissent les peuples de notre continent. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous vivons l'heure de toutes les transitions. L'économie classique vivait sur le modèle de stock et d'accumulation de richesses. Nous vivons aujourd'hui à l'heure des flux, des échanges et des réseaux. Nous sommes passés d'un monde à l'autre. Nos rapports, il y a peu, étaient essentiellement fondés sur le léger différé qu'il pouvait exister entre un demandeur et son correspondant. On écrivait une lettre, on patientait pour sa réponse. Nous vivons aujourd'hui dans l'échange quasi instantané. Cela requiert des pouvoirs publics qui déploient tous les moyens pour s'adapter à cette nouvelle donne. Nous sommes la génération de toutes les transitions, des transitions les plus fondamentales. Et aujourd'hui, la question la plus déterminante est de savoir comment nous menons à bien toutes ces transitions. Comment s'organiser pour assurer la reconversion des territoires miniers? Comment assurer également la reconversion de nos sites nucléaires vers les énergies de demain? Ce ne sont pas des questions très simples à aborder, mais nous les abordons. Nous portons dans le Grand Est une ambition, être les champions français du mix énergétique, mais un mix où la part des énergies carbonées se réduise comme peau de chagrin, parce qu'en politique, disait le général de Gaulle, il ne faut pas seulement vouloir, il faut encore souhaiter les conséquences de ce que l'on veut. Cela ne sert à rien dans les objectifs planétaires, ceux du protocole de Kyoto comme ceux des accords de Paris, de sortir immédiatement du nucléaire s'il n'existe dans le même temps qu'une seule solution de repli, produire 10 ou 12 centrales à charbon. Il faut être conséquent et accepter que les grandes transitions dont aujourd'hui nous sommes les acteurs puissent ne pas se faire à la minute, mais s'inscrire dans la durée et dans le temps. C'est bien le mérite de l'Union européenne de ne pas être dans le dogmatisme, mais bien dans le pragmatisme. Nous avons besoin d'actions concrètes, pas de plans sur la comète. Je vous remercie encore de votre présence et de vos travaux dans notre hémicycle.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. As you have heard from the speech of President Rotner, you can imagine that this initiative that we are launching today will encompass many areas of the European Union work, which go well beyond the energy sector, including regional, employment, research, environment, and climate policies. It represents a joint effort of all these sectors. And that is why I would like now to invite Commissioner Crețu, in charge of the regional policy, to give us her view, and we welcome her for her remarks. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I would like also to thank to the President Rodner, dear ministers, dear representatives and honorable members of European Parliament, representatives of the Commission of the European Parliament, dear Minister Statakis. We had the pleasure to work together and see each other much more often when Mr. Statakis was in charge of European funds. Now he's Minister of Environment and Energy, but we were very close together. Dear colleagues and friends, I have the honor of welcoming you all to this launch of the platform for the coal regions in transition under the auspices of the Grand Est region. And together with my colleagues, Vice President Maroš Šefčovič and Commissioner Cañete and myself, you know very well that because of unexpected harsh weather conditions, many of my colleagues and friends could not attend this important event today. Unfortunately, I'm the only commissioner in town, and after this meeting I have to leave to be at 5 o'clock in the plenary, because members of European Parliament, they don't accept any excuses, so I have to take all the points of Mr. Hogan, Vella, and other commissioners. But I would like to tell you that I am very keen on what we are doing together today as a commission and as colleagues, because from the first month of my mandate, we had this discussion between us how to help the lagging regions, the regions in transition. You know, I'm responsible for 290 regions. We have just issued the 7th cohesion policy report, which shows that despite of this economic growth that we have for so many years in Europe, and it's 9 years with the lowest unemployment rate, despite of all this, we have a lot of scars of the map of Europe, and coal regions have often suffered, they still suffered from the poverty, and also from an undeserved bad image, bearing the stigmas of over-exploitation of soils and hard labor, and then they can sometimes be reduced to declining regions. But we should be very honest and say that without these regions, Europe would not be the great economic power that it is today. Coal regions, as the President said, have shaped our landscape, our infrastructures, and our modern history, and they are somehow part of our DNA. So we owe them a lot, and I would like to pay tribute to all the people who are working in the mines, who work in the mines, and especially to those who lost their lives in the mines, because we had this all over Europe. So I think it's very important to know that we are here also because of their hard working and because of their sacrifices. And there are still thousands of our fellow citizens working in coal industry in Poland, the Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, or Germany, which is why we thought of this platform, and we need to reaffirm our commitment to these coal regions in transition. Changing to clean energy is happening globally, as evidenced by the landmark Paris Agreement, an unprecedented multilateral partnership between 200 countries. The agreement has put climate issues at the top of the international political agenda, and the One Planet Summit is taking place in Paris tomorrow will be an occasion to celebrate this historical agreement. One thing is clear, at least to me. The European Union's commitment to the clean energy transition is irreversible and non-negotiable. And we are determined to show leadership on the global scene as European Union. The road to a low-carbon economy should not be a painful process, but an opportunity to innovate, test solutions, and strive. Being here today for the launch of this platform is the strongest expression of our will to go in this direction. And it starts by tackling these discrepancies that I said to you about, where some regions are well positioned to take advantage of new opportunities from technological and industrial changes, while others, like the coal regions, are confronted with declining sectors, job losses, and stagnated wages. Overall, innovation in the European Union remains highly concentrated in a limited number of regions. We need to ensure that new ideas and technologies are spread across Europe and that European regions become more resilient. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, cohesion policy, for which I am responsible, makes a key contribution to the delivery of the European Union energy objectives and the EU far-reaching climate change agenda. All in all, you know very well that we have an allocation for each member state, and for the 2014-2020 programming period, one of the highest thematic objective is energy transition. So we dedicate a lot of money. The only problem that I honestly share with you is that we don't often have high quality projects, and we often have this money waiting in Brussels for money to be spent, because we need the invoices, we need the payment claims, and I think it's very important, bless you, it's very important to understand that this effort should be made hand in hand with the member states, because, as I said, we have unfortunately a very low rate of implementation of the entire money that we have. We have a very tough period ahead of us until May, when the President Juncker said that the Commission will submit the budget for post-2020, and it's very important to show that we know how to spend the money. In energy efficiency, if I look at the projects, the most important and the most popular, of course, are these projects in energy transition in buildings. That is obvious because it's changing the face of the buildings, but also because from the first months people can feel in their own pocket, in their own energy bill, the changes. But we have also a lot of other projects that could help, especially in the cold regions. That's why I invite you all to visit the platforms that we have in Sevilla, which provide you advice on the cost of European Commission, which kind of projects you can put in energy efficiency allocation. It's our nature of cohesion policy to provide a structural and long-term response to the industrial transition and restructuring of European regions, including, of course, the coal and carbon-intensive regions. And there are, of course, many cases where cohesion policy has helped local and regional authorities get the most out of their industrial legacy. I have in mind, for instance, Moravia-Silesia region in Czech Republic. Cohesion policy has contributed a lot to the regeneration of Dolny Vitkovice, an area where coal used to be mined. And the industrial complex has been transformed and has a significance reaching beyond the region. The complex is now the most visited Czech location outside the capital, outside Prague. So, as I said, we still have pockets of poverty. President Rodner also mentions the cross-border cooperation. I am a big fan of cross-border cooperation because the problems are not stopping at the border of one country, not pollution, not problem of the energy union. And I am also a big fan of exchanging of good practices. As I said, we have a lot of instruments, and I visit a lot of countries, regions. Sometimes I realize that a lot of ministers or presidents of the regions are not aware of so many instruments that we offer to them in order, for instance, this peer-to-peer. We have 30,000 people on the ground. On the request of the president of the region or of the member states, we can put on our money to have 3-5 days exchange of views on public procurement or state aid or how to make the transition, but we don't have requests of this kind. So I think it's very important to make people aware about all the instruments that we have. We have these examples that I give about from the Czech Republic shows very highly that as long as there is a political will, we find the right policies to change things. And this is exactly what smart specialization is about. It's a concept that it was developed under this programming period, 2014-2020, and bear results. That means that not all regions could become and should become Silicon Valley regions, but we have to build on regional strengths, pooling industries and researchers together to work on products and services where there is significant potential for regional growth. It has also been an incentive for reforms in many regions, addressing institutional weaknesses and in innovation ecosystems. Without smart specialization strategies, I don't know if in many countries we have had strategies on health, on waste, or other. So in a way, now for post-2020, once these ex-ante conditionalities are fulfilled and we have smart specialization in place, nothing could prevent us to go on and build on what we have achieved. In many regions, its smart specialization strategies helped in breaking down silos between administrative departments and in bringing together the research community, businesses, higher education institutes, public authorities, and civil society. I also learned a lot about this partnership that is very important for a region. In many regions, you know, when mayor is elected, he thinks that he doesn't need anybody else to show him what is a light, where is a path. The same with many presidents of the regions. But there is a transitions in many countries which works so well in putting together at the same table, and it's what we're trying with smart specialization strategies, to put together all the brains and the mind in the regions to have to say these are the allocation, these are the money. It's obvious that money will never be enough, public or private, but let's see what we can do in 7 years, in 14 years, what are our priorities for the next period, together with academia. If it's not a university, you have teachers, you have people from the research, businesses. I think it's very important to put all these minds together. So for this reason, we have now all these things in place, and now we have decided to go a step further by bringing together the stakeholders from all sides, public authorities, business, social parties, and civil societies. We can help to exchange these good practices and find the best solutions to every region. And I am very proud to be in charge of this unique policy, which is the most visible in the life of the people, but it is adapting to the feature of each region, and I think it's very important to work on each region which is in a way unique. So we'll provide the European added value to ensure that no one is left behind, because at the end of the day, We don't do politics for the sake of the politics, but for improving the life of the citizens. So this platform will firstly helping regions pursue new sectors of activity, for example, in renewable energy, skilling of workers. Secondly, it will also focus on eco-innovation, clean air strategies, and advanced coal technologies. And to conclude, because I was too long, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stress that transition in coal regions goes well beyond the energy sectors of Madame Colucci just said. It covers structural changes, moving the new sectors of economic activity, reskilling of workers, and adapted to the long-term research and innovation plans. I am confident that the platform we launched today will provide more accessible and better tailored support. I would like, of course, to see all regions using this platform, and with the help of cohesion policy funds and smart specialization strategies, to put in place concrete projects to help them reinvent themselves and serve as good examples of other sectors and other regions facing similar challenges. Of course, we count on your active participation, ideas, and determination so that we can work together towards a successful transformation of coal region across the European Union. I will be very glad to visit you, to see projects on the ground. As I always do, I try to visit as many regions as possible. Thank you very much. I wish you good luck to this conference, and hopefully we will work together much more closer in these 2 years that remains for this mandate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Crețu, for these inspiring words and encouragement. You may know that the Coal Region in Transition initiative has actually two components: the platform that we are launching this afternoon, but also what we call country-specific teams to assist the member states in their economic and technological transition. And already in second half of 2017, pilot country teams for Slovakia, Poland, and Greece were already established. And this is why I now have the honor to introduce Minister George Statakis, Minister of Environment and Energy for Greece.
Grazie.
Minister.
Okay, dear Commissioner, dear MPs, representatives of various regions, it's a great pleasure to be here today and discuss the challenges that several regions of our countries will face during a transition period that is the result of our irreversible and non-negotiable commitment to a clean energy future. Both as individual states and as a union, we all share the basic principles, four basic principles concerning the climate change. A, we all agree that climate change is real, is happening, is occurring in front of our eyes. B, that there is an overwhelming scientific evidence that this is a result of human actions. This triggered climate change. But at the same time, and most important of all, by taking action, we may revert this process. Third, I think we are all share the idea and the principle that we do need a strong transition and the substitution of coal and other forms of carbon in the production of energy, and we have to work together for the development of renewable energy, deployment of alternative fuels with low or close to zero carbon footprint. And fourth, that given the pivotal and role that coal has played in terms of economic growth for many economies in the past, there is an undisputable need to substitute coal in such a way that will not hinder the future growth of our economies, and this will be part of the issues and the phasing out processes, and that has to be discussed in the coming years. The European Union has long been committed to international efforts to tackle climate change, has been a privileged area in this respect. And it's no coincidence that we are working on the eve of the second anniversary of the Paris Agreement on Climate. And this new launch, the EU Platform on Coal Regions in Transitions, is taking place a day before the French President, Emmanuel Macron, together with the President of the World Bank Group, Jim Kim, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will address the ecological emergency of our planet by calling together in Paris international leaders and committed citizens from around the world. Today, we present a concrete example of the way on how the European Union and its member states are determined to fight for this global cause. Undeniably, the European Union has demonstrated its willingness to take action a long time ago. European Commission issued the first community strategy to limit carbon dioxide already in 1991. We adopted the first European climate change program back in 2000 and revised it in 2005. Aiming at enabling the Paris Agreement commitments, the clean energy package for all Europeans is in the agenda to be completed in the coming months. More or less, we are in the process where we have to have by 2030 very specific targets, specific policies, and most important of all, binding principles on which we have to work with. So the Greek government in a way is determined to devote all necessary means to achieve both optimistic targets for 2030 and implement a challenging agenda that will fight climate change. And with this respect, we think that today's initiative is a major one, a major step towards this direction. Although at an early stage, the platform does three basic things. A, it aims at diversifying regional economies by including or examining or trying to find solutions by implementing new technology and business models for the regional economies that have to diversify. B, examine and solve problems on the ground through experts, which one process that may work on the specific areas, but most importantly through a strong participatory process, which will include a strong bottom-up design of policies and specific measures that have to be implemented in the regions themselves. And C, we have to work on a conceptual document, a document that will provide local and regional representatives with an overview of both the instruments and funds that may be available in this respect towards this specific target. And this is important because at the end of the day, specific policies have to be designed, have to be participatory decision making, but at the end of the day, we do need specific funds that will make this transition smoother. The issue that we are discussing yet has to build on existing strategy and experiences from the past. I think it's an issue that has already been worked. We have extensive experience from the United States, from Europe, and from other areas of the world. So practically the agenda that is open to us has to take into account such available options and try to work and choose the most appropriate cases for each and every area. Let me summarize some of these issues in the agenda. In the United States, as you know, has been a debate, discussion during the last years. That we had the Obama plan that more or less aimed to support the coal industry for a deployment of carbon capture technologies as a one step in the strategy, in which case it prolonged somehow the function of the coal industry. But the second, the most important, was the investing both in people and places, with the aim of diversifying local economies through major infrastructure programs, small business support programs, job retraining programs, and last but not least, what has been in the United States important all the way, new forms of land use, either as prime farmland, wildlife habitat, commercial development, and various other forms. In the European version, where such elements have been present, there are two additional elements we should bear in mind. A strong element of incentives, regional incentives and infrastructure projects that change and try to focus on a massive transfer of technology and new business, in many cases indicating a combination of universities, institutions, research institutions, and industry that diversifies the system. We have a long tradition of adjustment money for those losing their jobs, training, and of course a more or less combined approach. In some of our countries, they call it the clusters approach, which indicates that we need the combination of more than one areas of policy making in order to have a real effect at the end of the day. My last note will be on Greece. As you know, Greece has been a very rich country in terms of lignite. We used to produce 20 years ago more than 80% of our energy from lignite. Nowadays it's slightly less than 30. Practically it's 30 renewables, 30 gas and 30 lignite. And we are in a transition phase where obviously lignite will be reduced further. We have a policy of no new lignite mines. We follow a policy of partial replacement of plants that are to be retrieved from 2018-2032. At the same time, we are in the middle of privatizing 40% of the capacity of lignite towards removing the monopoly that PPC has. We are right at this point. According to the existing time schedule from 2018 to 2032, there will be more or less 12 power plants to be retrieved, one to be built, and another two that are to function beyond 2032. The two areas where abundant lignite exists, and 90% of lignite production is 100% of lignite production is concentrated, is Western Macedonia, which is the major area, and an area in Peloponnesus, in Arcadia, where lignite will be exhausted by 2032. So it's in a transition period in any case, while in Western Macedonia, lignite is still abundant. All in all, I think that taking into account the targets to be set for 2030 and 2040, we feel that there will be a long transition period where lignite will be part of our energy mix at the end of the day, but at a rate and at a percentage that is compatible with the environmental targets to be set. And obviously the major replacement will be the high targets for renewables. We are, as I told you already, at 30%. We'll set a target for 50% by 2030. And this shift will be able to attain both the environmental targets and keep lignite as part of our energy mix through a process as indicated before. All in all, at the end of the day, I think that we are exactly at the point where the transition period starts, and this initiative has to incorporate both existing evidence, experience, new initiatives, and specific forms of funding that will allow local and regional communities, where practically 40 to 50% of the regional income in these areas comes from lignite, to provide plans that will produce results both in terms of diversification and in terms of the future of these regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now, after the Greece perspective, as I said, there are 3 countries that have started pilot projects with the Commission. Certainly Poland is among the emblematic country, where we have among the biggest region which is still active in the mining. And we welcome Michał Kurtyka, who is the Under-Secretary of State at the Ministry of Energy in Poland. Mr. Kurtyka.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Si vous me permettez de commencer en français, parce que nous sommes ici dans la région de Grand Est, et puis les paroles du président Rotner ont vraiment eu un impact dans tout ce que j'aimerais prononcer. Il a dit c'est dans les hauts fourneaux, et si j'ai bien noté, et par les gueules noires que l'intégration a commencé. C'est une belle phrase. C'est une belle phrase qui nous rappelle au début de l'intégration européenne, à une période où cette intégration progressait de façon extrêmement pratique, extrêmement, on l'appellerait aujourd'hui, terre à terre. Et je pense que nous devons se poser parfois la question, dans notre construction européenne, de ce retour à ces principes terre à terre, à cet esprit pratique qui a façonné les pères fondateurs. Est-ce que dans tout ce que nous mettons en œuvre, sommes-nous toujours aussi pragmatiques, aussi pratiques, ou bien est-ce que nous ne le sommes plus? J'en terminerai avec le français pour ne pas surcharger la traduction. Je sais que c'est plus facile pour tout le monde de continuer en anglais. Et puis, and then if you allow, I think that lots has been said by Commissioner, but by Minister Statakis, and we shall right now also, when thinking about this platform, raise some issues that, as I said, are of practical order, because it's important, I think, to have political will, but it's also important to demonstrate practical spirit in everything that we are doing in the energy sector in Europe. And I think that we should also not forget that modernity is not completely incompatible with fossil fuel technologies. And that is something which has been very interestingly demonstrated by shale technologies and by the fact that European Union is struggling to meet its emission obligations, while a country like United States, which has bet on technological development in shale gas, has no difficulties in decreasing its CO2 emissions. Also, I think it's important that today it's difficult to imagine a world of energy without fossil fuels. And the question that we must ask ourselves is to how to make them both work together and how to be again practical about these challenges that we are facing in Europe, rather than to think that we can solve everything by simply putting right targets. And last but not least, I think we shall not forget about European industry competitiveness and production of energy. Fossil fuels are important part of Europe's competitiveness, and with all our actions, we must be sure that we are tackling all the challenges that are ahead of us, not only environmental, but also industrial ones. And so when we turn to this initiative which is gathering us today, I think it's important, and I would like to thank you, the Commission, for raising this issue and for bringing a platform for coal regions in transition. And I think that these regions, maybe they were rich in the past centuries with fossil fuels, but right now they are rich with hardworking and competent people. And this platform and this tool can help these regions to on the path to modernity. And this path to modernity is very rightly determined by this platform's objectives, as on one side to develop new activities, to develop infrastructures, but on the other side also to develop new technologies that will help these regions and the goods that they are producing into something new, something cleaner, something healthier for our cities and for our planet. And if you allow me, and thank you very much for raising this issue, that Poland has been one of the emblematic countries and one of the first which proposed that this platform could have an impact in Poland. We are also aware of the fact that the Stone Age didn't stop because we ran out of stone, and that we need to progress and that we need to work in order to develop alternatives, in order to develop new ways of producing goods and new ways of creating wealth. And I think in this regard also Poland is doing a tremendous progress. Polish mine industry has been completely restructured in the last 2 years, and despite the fact that a number of people has lost their today's occupation, they must have been moved into other activities, still this very big restructuring is happening in really a very successful way. And it is important, I think, to combine thinking about the future and thinking about the past. restructuring already existing industries and developing new ones. And I think in this regard, we have a lot to do, and Europe must think about its industry. And when I say that Europe must think about its industry, this concerns also Poland. And we think that developing industry is one of the important element, one of the important way to preserve wealth creation in European Union. And this is also putting my country, Poland, at the heart of European challenges, because in the first 6 months of 2017, out of 3 jobs which have been created in the industry in European Union, 2 have been created in Poland. So we are able to combine both restructuring the old and creating the new. This requires pragmatism, this requires courage, this requires imagination. This requires also respecting our commitments, behaving responsibly towards the planet, the environment, but also towards people. And by this, I would like to thank you, the Commission, for raising this initiative, and say that we will be very happy to contribute in its success. And already now, I would be very happy to invite you to Katowice in the first half of 2018 in order to continue this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with this invitation, I will continue now with giving you a few words from Dominique Ristori, who unfortunately couldn't be here. He is the Director General for DG Energy, and he wanted to convey a message to all of you. I will try to be as short as possible. We heard today by the different intervention how important this platform represents for the coal region in transition. But the benefits of this initiative has to be put in the context of the energy transition, indeed, which is one of the priority of this Commission and of President Juncker. It is about decarbonizing the economy. And also delivering on our Paris commitment, as we heard it several times already. But I think we have also to acknowledge that the energy transition, or the benefit of the energy transition, go beyond just decarbonization. And it creates quite a number of opportunities in terms of investment, jobs and growth. We have already today renewable energies that create or account for more than 1.1 million jobs in Europe. And in the energy efficiency, as Commissioner Cretu also mentioned, we have created 2.4 million jobs, and more is to come. As you know, last year the Commission adopted the Clean Energy Package for all Europeans, which is now being negotiated in the Council and in the European Parliament. This package sets the right framework which is needed to facilitate the clean energy transition. But what we also have to acknowledge is that the Commission has been very clear when adopting the Clean Energy Package that this transition should be for all Europeans. No regions, no citizen should be left behind. And this is why today we are launching this platform. We heard of the different challenges that the coal regions are facing. I will not repeat them. What I would like to remind is to put in context the fact that coal mining today actually accounts for around 185,000 jobs. And many more are concerned if we take also the indirect jobs that are related to the coal mining. Coal mining regions in the EU, such as the one we heard in Poland, in Greece, or in Slovakia, or in Germany, rely on coal mining as really an important source of their revenue and employment. So the ongoing transition should represent opportunities and concrete benefit for all our citizens, as we heard it. It is therefore essential that we assist those regions. We see that the successful energy and economic transition in the coal region is high on the political agenda of all our distinguished speakers, but also of the European Parliament. And this under the leadership of MEP Buzek and MEP Van Bremt. There have been quite a number of proposals also from the Parliament of pilot project to support the Commission initiative in this space. And I wanted to remind this as well. Now, just to come back to the platform itself, in order to set the context also for the next discussion in the panels, it will be composed of mainly a political dialogue that we will have once a year at high political event, and then of 2 working groups that will mainly deal and focus, one on structural transformation and economic diversification of these regions, to develop new economic strength and sectors of activities. And the other one will focus on innovation and advanced coal technologies, which are compatible with the long-term vision of decarbonization. And these are also the 2 headings of the panel that will follow. We envisage to have the start of the working groups to be launched by the end of February. And considering what happened today, I would try, or I would like to pass the message that there is a strong will among at least my Director General, but I'm sure about our Commissioner Vice President, to do the utmost to also have a political event at that moment when launching the working group. I cannot promise, but I can tell you that is a strong endeavor that is up there. So now, without much ado, I would like to start the next part of this afternoon, which is the discussion into distinguished panel. And also to spice a little bit our afternoon after all these changes, I continue with another one. So rather than starting with the panel which is dedicated to industrial and technological change, we will start with the second one. So I hope you all follow me. And this will concern the structural transformation, reskilling, and social dialogue in coal mining regions, solutions, opportunities, and financing. And another surprise is that the moderator or the chair of the panel will not be Kathleen Van Bremt, who is stranded in Brussels in the snow. Actually, by now, I hope it has melted. But we have with us the pleasure to have Kaja Kallas, who is MEP representing Estonia and in the ALDE group, so the Liberal group. We are very happy that she accepted to moderate the panel. She has also very strong conviction when it comes to this issue. And so I would like to thank her very much, and I give the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words, and I also must apologize because maybe I haven't prepared as much as my colleague would have prepared. First of all, I want to say that I'm actually quite surprised that it's just focused on coal, because if the goal of the clean energy package in the European Union is actually to have more clean energy, then it should be focused on all the solid fossil fuels that we have. And I'm, of course, speaking as coming from Estonia, we have 90% of our energy production is actually based on oil shale, which is the most polluting energy source there is. And actually, it's also mined, it's also stone, everything is the same. We also have the same problems. And in addition to that, we also have the mines in our eastern part. So it's Russian-speaking minority who works there. So we have an additional problem related to that. Therefore, I would very much like to see that it wouldn't be just the platform for coal regions, but platform for solid fossil fuel regions in transition. That is just introduction. But coming to the topic, so we have a topic of structural transformation, reskilling and social dialogue in gold mining regions, solutions, opportunities and financing. I will first give the floor to Michal Kramitika, I hope I got the name right, who is the Deputy Marshal of the region of Silesia in Poland. So give some first introductory words on your behalf and then we go to questions. Thank you.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Bardzo dziękuję za zaproszenie. Jestem bardzo usatysfakcjonowany, mogąc być tutaj, mogąc gościć na tej konferencji, która inauguruje pracę Platformy. Pochodzę ze Śląska, z jednego z najbardziej uprzemysłowionych regionów w Polsce, ale też z regionu, który jest regionem najbardziej zindustrializowanym, ale również najbardziej rozwiniętym. Mamy również najwyższy w Polsce współczynnik urbanizacji. Jeżeli chodzi o kwestię doświadczenia procesem transformacji pogórniczej, to nasze województwo na mapie Polski jest regionem, który jest szczególnie tym procesem doświadczony. Na niewielkiej powierzchni, około 12 000 km², mieszka w województwie śląskim około 4,5 miliona osób. Region ten wytwarza największy procent produktu krajowego brutto całej Polski, około 12%. Region graniczy z Czechami i ze Słowacją. W DNA naszego regionu wpisana jest długa tradycja przemysłowa, stąd atutami tego regionu, tutaj warto odnieść się do wypowiedzi pana ministra, są obok kapitału ludzkiego i instytucjonalnego również dobre zaplecze infrastrukturalne oraz rozwinięty sektor przemysłu, ale też innowacji. Z drugiej jednak strony nasz region ma kilka barier rozwojowych. Jedną z najpoważniejszych tych barier jest zła jakość środowiska naturalnego i wyzwania związane z rewitalizacją centrów miast. Z 50 europejskich najbardziej zanieczyszczonych miast ujętych na liście Światowej Organizacji Zdrowia, aż 33 położone są w Polsce, z tego 10 na Śląsku. Wyzwania związane z poprawą jakości życia na Śląsku obrazuje pozycja regionu w Europejskim Indeksie Społecznym. Pod kątem jakości środowiska województwo śląskie lokuje się tam na ostatniej pozycji. Jednak ten obraz naszego regionu nieustannie się zmienia. Na przykład w 2002 roku udział górnictwa w PKB regionu wynosił 10%. Branża górnicza zatrudniała 150 000 ludzi, a złą jakość środowiska obrazowała ilość pyłu w powietrzu wynosząca prawie 39 ton rocznie. 15 lat później udział górnictwa w PKB regionu spadł do poziomu 7%, zatrudnienie w tym sektorze spadło do około 90 000 osób, natomiast zapylenie powietrza obniżyło się o 9 ton rocznie. Mimo tych zmian region stale kojarzony jest z górnictwem węgla kamiennego. Na terenie województwa zlokalizowana jest większość działających obecnie w Polsce kopalni węgla kamiennego. Mają tutaj siedzibę 3 największe koncerny węglowe w kraju. Zmiana paradygmatu gospodarczego województwa śląskiego stanowi więc wyzwanie zarówno dla regionu, jak i dla rządu centralnego. W zmianie profilu dużą zasługę ma Unia Europejska, a w szczególności środki kierowane do regionów. W poprzedniej perspektywie finansowej w ramach polityki spójności wydaliśmy w województwie śląskim 1,75 miliarda euro. W obecnej perspektywie dysponujemy największym regionalnym programem operacyjnym w Europie. Do wydania mamy około 3,5 miliarda euro. 22% tej kwoty jest przeznaczona na modernizację obszaru energetyki, w szczególności w celu podniesienia efektywności energetycznej, promowania odnawialnych źródeł energii i gospodarki niskoemisyjnej. Szeroko rozumiana rewitalizacja jest jednym z kluczowych celów naszej polityki regionalnej. Urząd Marszałkowski Województwa Śląskiego ma doświadczenie i kompetencje w zarządzaniu środkami unijnymi. W ramach współpracy z Europejskim Bankiem Inwestycyjnym zarządzamy także środkami powracającymi. Inicjatywa, która dzisiaj ma swoje wielkie otwarcie, jawi się nam jako przedsięwzięcie idealnie nakierowane na potrzeby województwa śląskiego. Wsparcie skierowane na transformację strukturalną i równoległe rozwijanie zaawansowanych technologii węglowych pozwoli nadać rozwojowi regionu zupełnie nową dynamikę. Jesteśmy gotowi, aby aktywnie włączyć się w tę inicjatywę. Jestem też przekonany, że najlepsze efekty jesteśmy w stanie osiągnąć, współpracując w ramach tej inicjatywy z władzami centralnymi. Nie możemy również pomijać nowego szczebla samorządu, który został utworzony w województwie śląskim. Mam tutaj na myśli pierwszy w Polsce obszar metropolitalny. Mieliśmy gościć szefa tego obszaru, prezesa Górnośląsko-Zagłębiowskiej Metropolii, pana Kazimierza Karolczaka, ale podobnie jak wielu innych mówców został on zatrzymany przez 15 centymetrów śniegu, które spadło w Brukseli. W imieniu województwa śląskiego deklaruję gorącą chęć przystąpienia do platformy dla regionów znajdujących się w procesie transformacji górniczej. Jesteśmy gotowi podjąć wszystkie wyzwania, które wraz z tą platformą zostaną przed nami postawione. Bardzo dziękuję za uwagę.
Thank you for the initial statement. I would ask the panelists also keep your initial statement to 3 minutes so we can also discuss the questions that we have. Next speaker will be Albrecht Gerber, Minister for Economic Affairs and Energy of the state of Brandenburg. So you could explain your experience. Thank you.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, Deutschland ist ja im Unterschied zu manchen anderen Ländern in einer besonderen Situation. Viele europäische Länder haben nicht so viel Kohle, aber halten weiterhin an der Atomkraft fest. In Deutschland werden wir aus der Atomkraft bekanntlich aussteigen. Das stellt uns vor besondere Herausforderungen, die auch dazu führt, dass die Kohle in Deutschland noch eine wichtige Rolle für die Versorgungssicherheit und Preisstabilität spielt. Gleichzeitig sind wir in der Energiewende als Bundesland Brandenburg sehr weit vorne. Wir haben zum Beispiel die höchste installierte Leistung von Windkraftanlagen pro Kopf in ganz Deutschland. Da sind wir stolz drauf. Also wir haben sowohl die, ich sag mal, klassische Industrie als auch die moderne Industrie bei uns im Land. Deswegen ist es für uns eine große Herausforderung, neben der Strukturentwicklung in der Lausitz auch diese technischen Fragen zu klären, also Netze auszubauen und Speichertechnologien zu entwickeln, um ein funktionierendes System schaffen zu können. Wir haben uns gemeinsam mit unserem Nachbarland Sachsen, die Lausitz, das Braunkohlerevier betrifft ja 2 Bundesländer, sehr eng abgestimmt in den letzten Jahren. Wir haben auch eine gemeinsame gemeinnützige Organisation der kommunalen Ebene gegründet, die sogenannte Wirtschaftsregion Lausitz, die sich über ein länderübergreifendes Standortmanagement kümmert. Wir haben an unseren Universitäten Transferstellen aufgebaut, um Innovationen, Ausgründung und neue Arbeitsplätze in den Regionen zu schaffen. Denn klar ist natürlich, wir können nicht darauf warten, dass ein Investor vom Himmel fällt, sondern wir müssen uns erstmal um die Unternehmen kümmern, die wir haben und sie bei ihrer Entwicklung unterstützen. Wir freuen uns über die Installation der Kohleplattform und ich möchte auf 2 Dinge hinweisen. Wir brauchen natürlich einen verlässlichen finanziellen Rahmen, das ist schon mehrfach gesagt worden, für die weitere Arbeit in den Kohleregionen und auch einfachere Regeln, um Fördermöglichkeiten der Europäischen Union auch vor Ort wirksam werden zu lassen. Ich glaube, dass das ganz wichtig ist, sich dort es zu schaffen, einfachere Prozesse hinzubekommen und vielleicht auch, so wie das ja auch schon angeklungen ist, mit Expertinnen und Experten der Europäischen Kommission vor Ort um die Möglichmachung der finanziellen Unterstützung von Braunkohleregionen sich zu kümmern. Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. And next is Montserrat Mirroca, Confederal Secretary, European Trade Union Confederation. So you can also share the employees' perspective, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you for the moderation. First of all, I want to introduce that we represent at ETUC more than 50 million workers in Europe, and we are the voice of those workers in Europe. And I think we are here today to accompany regions on the road towards a low carbon economy. I think that also that this conversation is important for trade union movements, because just transition, we have been demanding for years, requires, among other things, public investment and public initiative to support regions and sectors where the co-benefits of decarbonization will be more difficult to ensure. Even so, we know that energy efficiency, renewable energy, and circular economy will boost job creation. We also know that decarbonization will have a disruptive effect on the labor market and on jobs, on employment in sectors and in regions that are something highly concentrated in a specific regions. Coal mining is the most obvious of this example, of these realities, and knowledge that the social challenges related to decarbonization must never be a pretext to delay or weaken the Paris Agreement. We think that in ETUC that the temperature objectives of this agreement must become our collective objective, and I think this platform is also in that sense. We need to protect climate and social justice, and cannot be either or. We need to try to do both. And the debate must be deal with a mutually reinforcing. This is, by the way, one of the underlining messages of the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. The ETUC welcomed the initiative that should aim at better articulating the labor agenda and the energy transition, and an initiative that provides concrete answers to the need of those that are not amongst the winners of the low-carbon economy. The choice to focus on this platform on the regional level should also help to better identify the challenges and the concrete solutions to overcome them. This is also recommended by the ETUC, that we have anticipated also this debate 2 years ago when we have published this report, Industrial Regions and Climate Policies Towards a Just Transition. We have visited several of these regions that now are the object of this platform, and we have been on the floor speaking with workers in Silesia, in Stara Zagora, in different parts of Europe, where we have seen that they are not against, but what they need is alternatives and funding and solutions. We think also we'd like to call the platform to produce concrete deliverables that will be useful for the region's partners, bearing in mind the subsidiarity principle and the need to ensure local ownership of the platform. We want to stress that local ownership goes hands in hand with the need to ensure a broad participation of local stakeholders and particularly social partners. The close involvement of trade unions is key to ensure this local ownership. The ETUC also hopes that this platform will not be a one-shot initiative, but that it will be strongly anchored to the governance of the energy union. Before was mentioned the package, energy clean package for all. The planning and reporting requirements that are currently under discussion must reflect the willingness to strengthen policy planning, including at regional level. These requirements must also reflect the holistic approach of the energy transition, and we hope that they will include labor and employment issues, and that social partners will be systematically consulted for the preparation of national plans for climate and energy, as well for the 2050 low-carbon development strategies. We also request that this first exercise leads to secure specific financial resources in the post-2020 EU budget to support those that might be in hardship because decarbonization, keeping in mind that massive investment in the transition towards a low-carbon economy will treat thousands of jobs. We have noted with some satisfaction that the future ETS will allow member states to use auctioning revenues to support just transition on the workforce, and that the modernization fund will do the same for the beneficiary member states. But let's be honest, this is far than enough. Just transition must be one of the priorities for the next multi-annual financial framework. As far as innovation concerned, this is an important aspect of climate policies, and the swift deployment of low-carbon technologies is crucial to ensure the EU is on the track to be low-carbon economy by 2050. However, innovation policies should avoid to lead to windfall profits and should also exclusively support technologies in line with the Paris Agreement. Long-term goals, of course. Creating new-looking situations cannot be an option. Ladies and gentlemen, this year, as have been mentioned before, next year, we will have a big opportunity in Katowice, because the COP24 will take place in Katowice, and should adopt the working arrangements of the Paris Agreement. We see this COP as crucial for the climate, but crucial for the EU to demonstrate its leadership on climate and on just transition. The EU has 1 year to deliver on climate ambition and on just transition, and we hope that this initiative will help to make EU more ambitious for climate and more ambitious for workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Last in the panel is Nick Maybe, who will then talk more about finance.
Great. Thank you very much, and the opportunity to be here, because I think it's so important that the idea of a clean energy revolution, it sounds very exciting if you're benefiting from it, but it needs to benefit everyone if we're going to keep society on board. For those of you who don't know E3G, we're a non-profit organisation working across Europe and globally. We work bottom up, very often with the E2UC and our union friends and civil society in coal regions. But we also work to connect that to European and national policy. And I think I just want to touch on some of those issues, some of the messages who are already coming out. We're also very involved in the Powering Past Coal Alliance, which also has a similar focus on just transition and finance, but at the global level. And I hope the two alliances, or platforms and alliances, will find a way of working together. I'm not quite sure how a platform and an alliance work together, but we can work everything out in Europe. But I think just the first thing, that the clean energy revolution does represent an additional set of opportunities and jobs. We will not be spending 600 billion euros outside Europe every year on energy, and we can redirect that investment inside Europe, and it can't be said enough. That will not happen automatically, though. We need a real industrial policy to do that, and I think one area we need to make sure is the industrial policy writ large in Europe and nationally is connected to these regions. It's not just a separate industrial policy around innovation for coal regions. That won't work. We need to do that. Because if Europe's going to benefit from reindustrialization from the clean revolution, it's going to be competing not with dirty coal in China, but with really cheap solar in Saudi Arabia, Chile, and Qatar, where they're already building industrial parks in chemicals and other areas to take advantage of the incredibly cheap clean energy they have. So you're not carbon leakage, and we need a policy of purchasing and public procurement industrial policy that takes us to the new industrial spaces. And as my colleague said, we need a part, just industrial policy, but also a line in the MFF that supports that work of diversification and retraining in regions. So we're really looking for some dedicated funding in the new budget round. But the lessons we've learned from our work in communities and looking back at transitions in the past, Britain specialises in bad industrial transitions, so we learned a lot from my home country. His first one is think broadly about this in communities, and I think we worry sometimes, again, this narrows down to coal. We should be thinking broadly about regions and communities and new workers. A lot of this is about the opportunities for new workers as well as managing the problems of older workers, and seeing the broader mixture, as someone said, bridging across different silos in the social sector and in the industrial innovation sector. And that's really important. We have not seen successful transitions that haven't managed that. The second lesson, start early. All successful transitions are started early. If you start late, go narrow, and fund the old industries, it generally always fails. That's the only lesson one can draw from the particulars. And that's where this issue of countries planning their 2030 and 2050 low-carbon transition, we need to integrate the social issues in there. And paradoxically, coal-dependent regions would do better to force their governments to give them certainty and planning now around it rather than trying to eke out the future, because that's what's going to get the investment in and give them time to develop new industries. If you do it late, you miss the boat. So I think that's one of we've got a real opportunity with the European governance framework to do this right, but it's too often being seen as a burden, not an opportunity, and we really need to change that framing. And the last one is we really do need this transition to be real. We can't afford the social issues to hold up the transition, because the reason we're tackling climate change and air pollution is not for some green mythos, it's to protect Europeans from extreme weather and dirty air, real death, the majority of Europeans who suffer from that. So this is a social contract. It's right that if the majority benefits from being protected, they help the minority who has to change most to deal with that. But the change has to happen in order to protect the majority of Europeans from air pollution and from extreme climate change. And I think that we must make sure this platform supports that social contract of action and transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to come to the employment issue. I think that always with these kind of transitions, there is the long-term perspective and the short-term perspective. So we also read from the clean energy package that the European Commission estimates up to 900,000 new jobs to be created, mainly as a result of energy efficiency measures and the construction and engineering sectors. But as we know, very often they are not in the same region where the problems then are. And so there is this short-term perspective for those people who actually lose the jobs. So very often the long-term perspective doesn't really help those people who lose the job. So how do you see this transition there? We talk about reskilling, but very often it's totally new jobs that come maybe are not suitable for these people. So what do you see? How do you see the solutions in this case? Whoever wants to come. What have you done in your regions to help the transition?
Ja, dieser Übergangsprozess findet ja zumindest in der Lausitz schon seit 25 Jahren statt. Also in den Anfang der 90er Jahre haben schon 90% der Menschen, die im Bergbau gearbeitet haben, in der Lausitz ihren Arbeitsplatz verloren. Und unsere Erfahrung war, dass das ein disruptiver Bruch gewesen ist, der auch zu Abwanderungen geführt hat. Wir wollen uns darauf konzentrieren, auf zwei wesentliche Punkte. Zum einen, dass wir bei den Unternehmen jenseits der Braunkohlewirtschaft, die schon da sind, aber abhängig sind, zum Teil als Zulieferer vom Bergbau, ihnen zu ermöglichen, neue Geschäftsfelder und neue Märkte zu entwickeln, um auf anderen Feldern wachsen zu können, die nicht zwingend mit dem Bergbau, sondern vielleicht mit anderen Bereichen der Energieproduktion oder ganz neuen Feldern zu tun haben. Das ist der erste Punkt. Und der zweite Punkt ist, wir setzen darauf, unsere universitären und außeruniversitären Forschungseinrichtungen in der Region zu unterstützen oder dort neue anzusiedeln mithilfe der Bundesregierung, um Innovationen und natürlich dann auch Ausgründungen und neue innovative Gründungen aus den Universitäten und wissenschaftlichen Einrichtungen heraus in der Region zu haben, um Modernität, Neues zu entwickeln und auch für junge Menschen attraktiv zu sein. Gleichzeitig dürfen wir, und das müssen wir auch so tun als Landesregierung, diejenigen Menschen, die jetzt konkret im Bergbau arbeiten, nicht vergessen, zu sagen, ihr seid die Verlierer, tut mir leid. Das ist eine Antwort, die man als verantwortliche Landespolitik auch nicht geben kann. Unabhängig davon, wie Fragen von Versorgungssicherheit und Preisstabilität in unserem Land gesehen werden. Insofern brauchen wir einen Übergangszeitraum, der lang genug ist, um zum einen das Neue aufzubauen. Das kann man ja nicht auf Befehl tun in einer Marktwirtschaft. Und zum anderen das Alte abzubauen.
Właściwie wszystkie istotne elementy zapewnienia, zorganizowania nowych miejsc pracy osobom odchodzącym z przemysłu górniczego zostały wymienione przez mojego szanownego przedmówcę. I właściwie wszystkie elementy prowadzenia polityki związanej z odchodzeniem od tego przemysłu opartego na bazie paliw kopalnych również zostały przez mojego przedmówcę wyszczególnione. Dodam tylko, że z punktu widzenia naszego regionu, z punktu widzenia województwa śląskiego, istotne jest, aby wraz z odchodzeniem ludzi z sektora górniczego, wraz z odchodzeniem pracowników z sektora górniczego, zapewniać im nowe możliwości, nowe okoliczności podejmowania pracy w innych dziedzinach przemysłu. A to może być związane z inspiracją ze strony władz centralnych, to znaczy jedno uprzemysłowienie powinno zmieniać się w inne uprzemysłowienie innego charakteru. Sam przemysł oparty o innowacje, sam przemysł badawczo-rozwojowy nie ma szans wchłonąć wszystkich pracowników, którzy będą odchodzić z sektora górniczego, więc konieczny jest po prostu wzrost uprzemysłowienia całego regionu, który będzie zapewniał miejsca pracy dla tych, którzy siłą rzeczy z przemysłu górniczego będą musieli odejść. Dziękuję.
Yes, thank you. And actually, I would add one question to you. Very often, or you can also say that it's not so, but I feel that sometimes it is so that the workers in the mines or in the sector actually are really opposing the transition, which is logical as well. And as Nick said, that you can't, when you start late, you actually miss out the opportunities. So how do you overcome that? And also one additional question, how do you really train the people who don't want to be trained? It's just the question is stemming from a study that we did on digital skills, where people who assess their digital skills to be the lowest also answered to the question, do you need more training? No. So actually, how do you really train or reskill the people who actually just want to oppose the transition? Thank you.
I don't know if I will have time to answer all the questions, but I think the first question is that in what extent the current workforce in the coal-related industries be reskilled and retraining to be employed in the future activities. For example, we think on in building, in reforming buildings, or in engineering. And how large are the gaps? For us, is very important because to have a reconversion, we need to have other alternatives. We need to have jobs to move these workers, to reskill these workers. And there is another element also, the background of these workers. Not all workers are ready to be reconverted immediately due to the age, due to the need to be more skilled. But at the same time, I think that when active labor policies are not possible, Europe and these regions needs to cover with the necessary social protection systems that allow to early retirement policies or other mechanisms. But the first main question is retraining only makes sense when there are jobs available in other sectors. That means that we need also to reorientate the industrial landscapes of these regions to provide the necessary jobs to those workers. The ones that will have the possibility to be retrained and reskilled will be probably moved to these new initiatives, and the others, the social protection and the welfare needs to cover these workers too.
It's true, and it's about location. In the northeast of England and in Scotland, we're very lucky that the offshore wind industry has taken up an awful lot of workers from the offshore oil industry and the gas industry, and that's been a very, because one say, easy conversion, and prosperity has returned from a declining industry because those fields were going down. Now a very prosperous industry, but that's, well, shall we say, a minority of areas have that kind of long-term alignment of skills, infrastructure, industries, and across the old and the new. But actually, in some ways, I'd put the point back. I think for most areas which are near urban centres, not rural, actually the short-term issue is easier than the medium to long-term issue, Because in the short term, the issues of refurbishing housing, heating and distributed solar, and we've seen this both in UK, in the US, in other parts of Europe, there's quite a good match between the skills of kind of mid-level skill and high-level skill engineering and retrofit. And we can create that demand. We can create demand through public purchasing and through spending public money for things that are worthwhile to do. And that is spread across the whole of countries. As long as there are people living there, there is refurbishment in the commercial or residential sector. So actually, but those jobs don't last forever. That's a 10 to 15 year project. But that's enough time to build up other, the harder job really, which is new industrial logic in a region. And I think that's, to be honest, that's a harder thing to do than to actually give a really good set of jobs for 10 to 15 years in the new energy sectors. So I think we're lucky. But that doesn't solve it for, as you say, older workers or rural areas. And some of the rural areas we work in, there is no easy answer, and we shouldn't pretend there is. There are parts of biofuels and the bioeconomy that perhaps could work there, but it's not mature yet, not for people in their 40s. So again, we are talking about social protection and just to be honest, honesty. I mean, I really don't think we should promise what we can't deliver, but I actually think we could deliver a lot more if we had a very active policy on some of these other areas like energy efficiency than perhaps we're doing at the moment.
Thank you. The other topic that was part of all the interventions was money. So we heard from Commissioner Crețu that there's plenty of money in the Commission, but there's just not enough good projects. And then we heard from the minister Statakis that there's not enough funding. There should be more funds available. So who is right? Who wants to? Do you want to comment?
Ich bin nicht der Sprecher der Europäischen Kommission, ich nicht.
But how do you feel? Do you feel that in order to do all this, to go through with the transition, you need more money, or there's plenty of money that the problems are elsewhere, or how do you feel?
Diese Frage lässt sich pauschal nicht beantworten. Ich gebe mal eine brandenburgische Antwort und dann vielleicht eine mögliche europäische Antwort. Für die Bereiche der klassischen Wirtschaftsförderung in einem deutschen Bundesland haben wir als Land und ich als Wirtschaftsminister genügend Fördermittel zur Verfügung, aber was fehlt in der Lausitz, aber auch in anderen Teilen des Landes zum Teil sind Unternehmen, die diese Fördermittel auch zum Beispiel für eine Betriebserweiterung abrufen. Und ich kann ja niemanden dazu zwingen. Also es fehlt zumindest auf der mittelfristigen Perspektive nicht unbedingt am Geld. Aber was wir, glaube ich, brauchen, ist eine Konzentration, eine stärkere Konzentration, wo auch Europa hilfreich sein kann bei Maßnahmen und Instrumenten, die für Regionen im Strukturwandel von besonderer Bedeutung sind. Und zwei Dinge habe ich ja vorhin genannt. Das eine sind die Erweiterung von Unternehmen, aber vielleicht speziell auch der Bereich von Förderung von Forschung und Entwicklung, um in diesen Regionen dezentral Innovationen möglich zu machen. Da könnte ich mir schon sehr gut vorstellen, dass dort die betroffenen Nationalstaaten und die Europäische Union zu Verbesserungen kommen können für Regionen im Strukturwandel, die ja nach wie vor Energieregionen sind und das vielleicht auch bleiben wollen, wenn auch eben Energieregionen in einem neuen Zeitalter. Dort gibt es ein hohes Verständnis dafür, wie wichtig es ist, dass Energie produziert wird, damit wir alle nicht im Dunkeln sitzen und dass es warm wird. Und das kann man, diese Bereitschaft auch von Menschen kann man für künftige Entwicklungen nutzen, wenn man die richtigen Instrumente anbietet. Also einerseits kann ich Ihre Frage mit Nein beantworten, was das Geld betrifft, aber eben nur zum Teil. Ich glaube, dass mit Blick nach vorne es genug Möglichkeiten gibt, die eben auch in dieser Kohleplattform hier diskutiert werden können.
W wypowiedzi pani komisarz Crețu pojawiają się dwa wątki. Te wątki na pierwszy rzut oka wydawałoby się są rozbieżne, to znaczy jednocześnie środki są i jednocześnie tych środków nie ma. czyli potrzebne są nowe środki. I zgadzam się z oboma tymi wątkami, to znaczy w mojej ocenie w obecnie trwającej perspektywie finansowania jest wiele środków, które możemy uruchomić, aby realizować cele platformy. Musimy w odpowiedni sposób wypromować, w jaki sposób przedsiębiorcy mogą sięgnąć po te środki. Musimy również zwykle we współpracy z władzami centralnymi zachęcić ich do tego, aby po te środki sięgali. Przykład województwa śląskiego wskazuje, że da się to zrobić. Korzystamy dla niektórych programów badawczo-rozwojowych z dwóch różnych, wydawałoby się, programów. Z regionalnego programu operacyjnego przeznaczonego dla regionu, dla województwa śląskiego i jednocześnie z programu operacyjnego Infrastruktura i Rozwój, którego dysponentem jest Narodowe Centrum Badań i Rozwoju, czyli władza centralna. Połączenie jak gdyby tych dwóch możliwości finansowania na pewno przyniesie spodziewane efekty. Jeżeli chodzi o to, co będzie po roku 2020, to w mojej ocenie na pewno nowe środki będą się musiały pojawić. Wtedy, również nawiązując do jednej z tez mojego przedmówcy, ważna będzie prostota dystrybucji tych środków, odpowiednie ich owskaźnikowanie, to znaczy Komisja Europejska będzie musiała postawić przed nami bardzo konkretne wyzwania, a my po prostu będziemy je musieli realizować. Także jednocześnie prawdą jest, że te środki w dzisiejszej perspektywie unijnej są i prawdą jest, że w przyszłych okresach finansowania będą się musiały pojawić nowe. Bardzo dziękuję.
Yes, difficult, the question. We think that carbon neutrality must be achieved globally during the second part of this century. And for that reason, Paris Agreement aims to make the finance flows consistent also towards the low green gas emissions. And when we talk about the Paris Agreement, it's about the commitment from the countries. And when the countries commit, they also the European Commission have include this commitment in the budget. Means the budget must be in line and the projects that will be financed must be in line with this objective. Of course, the MFF and must be designed, taking into account the differences and all that, but EU money, we consider that cannot be useful to finance projects that are not in line with these objectives, as I say. Concretely, for example, the EU power system must become zero emissions, not only through the accelerated deployment of renewables. This is another possibility also to invest, to use this money that the Commission says that will be part of these projects. No, major efforts must be done, for example, to speed the transformation in sectors like transport. That will be also an important sector where the decarbonization must play a role. And at the same time, we think also that the industrial innovation must drive towards initiatives that can make the European Union the leader of these low carbon technologies. And of course, the next MFF must clearly and strongly support these objectives.
And there is a constant discussion that there's enough money. There's 14 trillion in euros of institutional investment in Europe looking for a home. And even if you just take the European Investment Bank's ability to leverage that, there's a huge amount of money out there in the short term. But that money wants a return at a certain risk, and that means it'll go to the easiest places to do the easiest projects. And most of these regions aren't the easiest places. They're actually some of the harder places, and we're trying to do some of the harder projects, especially when we're looking at reskilling existing workers as opposed to people straight out of college. And that's why I think we need dedicated funding to build pipelines of projects and approaches in these areas, and this is what every European government is doing outside Europe in its development programs. So there's nothing new in this, because otherwise you won't get the money flowing to these areas, because there are other areas. So again, it's not big money, it's smaller but smart money. But as I said earlier, I think there needs to be linked to more policy areas. So we need a much more active, and the Commission's looking at its public procurement approach to things like new materials and low carbon construction, which could be a massive place for new industries to come up, to drive new issues around efficiency. And one of the things we've pioneered for the last actually 10 years in China, which hasn't been done in Europe yet, is setting up regional low carbon zones where you actually experiment, and we set these up in very coal heavy parts of China looking to transition. And the Chinese government have been using this piloting approach for 10 years, backed by European governments, to dramatically transform regions as a whole. And I think we could do well to learn from our own lessons outside Europe and bring that method home, because some of the ways we do it they're just too small and piecemeal to really attract money and the kind of change people are talking about. You need to be more systematic. And as I say, there are lessons to be learned out there if we're open enough to take them.
Thank you. With that note, I think our time is up, and our next moderator, colleague Christian Eller, is also here. So I thank you for the panel, and join me for applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MEP Kallas. Really grateful, because if you tell us that you didn't prepare, it didn't show. You have animated very well this panel, and the questions have been challenging, I think, and we have learned quite a lot. Maybe if I can add some elements before passing to the new panel, because you have called all of us on the title of this platform. The intention is that on the long term that we are actually dealing with carbon intensive regions in general. We have started with the coal mining because they are very focused, they are easy to frame, and because the number of employees is also quite important. But the ambition of the Commission is to go further and to take the example of the coal regions then as a best practice to actually then tackle other issues and further issues. So we take note indeed of your concern. It's an important one, and it's certainly one that we want to tackle as well. So thank you again. And now I will introduce the second panel, the one that was supposed to be the first panel. And I'm very glad to welcome MEP Eller as the moderator of this second panel, which is dedicated to industrial and technological change in coal mining regions, future perspectives, challenge, and financing. MEP Eller is a member of the European Parliament since 2004, and a member of the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy, as was also Mrs. Kaja Kallas. He is also a strongly supporter of the transition of the Lausitz region towards new economic activities, using the possibilities provided by clean energies and technologies. So I'll leave the floor to you, MEP Eller, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to apologize and thank the guests and my colleagues that we could switch the panels. I tried to get to Frankfurt, it was blocked. I tried to get to Brussels. I got a call from the commissioner that he's sitting in Brussels. So I went to Stuttgart, we couldn't get a car. It took me 4 hours to come here, so thank you very much for your patience. Just to jump into the subject, I would like to refer to the history of that discussion. I mean, industrial and technology change in coal mining regions. I would like to welcome, first of all, our panelists. It's Thomas Wünsch, the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Economy, Science and Digitalization in Saxony-Anhalt. Lucy Studniczna, is that? We're doing terrible things to other people's names here in the Parliament. So she's the President of the Consultative Committee on Industrial Change of the European Economic and Social Committee. Wolfgang Cieslik, the President of Eurocoal. Kirsten Dunlop, the Chief Executive of the Climate Kick, which might be more familiar with you under the headline of the EIT. And Mark Mohini, Head of Division of the European Investment Advisory Hub. I just want to refer or to start the discussion a little bit with the reference of the past. In terms of industrial and technology challenge, we refer usually, first of all, to the coal and the coal-related industries itself. And it had been roughly 8 years ago when the Commission, in the framework of the SET plan, was transferring the amount of roughly 400 million euro to one of the major stakeholders of the industry in my region, but that was open also to other regions, and we would have seen that afterwards also appearing in other regions, to set up the first full-fledged CCS coal-fired plant in Europe. And what failed, and practically after a year, the money was referred back to the Commission, and the biggest at that time pilot project of CCS failed because we failed completely with the regulatory framework in the member states on CCS. So now referring to CCS, but also CCU, because CCU might be also related to infrastructure questions, pipelines, a lot of also transnational kind of infrastructure. I heard that in recent days in Amsterdam there had been the first CCS exploratory plant, which is using former gas pipelines to store it under the sea. So, I mean, we are coming from a 10-year-long discussion on transition technologies, but it's a complex issue because it's related to the economic interest of an industry which is relatively effective right now. The coal industry is earning money. It's related also to infrastructure decisions. It's related to investment decisions. It's related to a complex regulatory framework. The framework might not be just in the framework of the national member states. It might be also bilateral or might be the common market. So I think with that understanding of that complex framework of technology change related, let's say, to the core industries in that region, I would like to open the discussion and would like to give the floor to Thomas Wünsch, the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Economy in Saxony-Anhalt. Please, the floor is yours.
Vielen Dank, Herr Abgeordneter Ehler, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Zunächst möchte ich die Gelegenheit nutzen, hier in diesem Rahmen mich zu bedanken für die Initiative der Stakeholder der Kommission und aller Beteiligten, eine solche europäische Kohleplattform einzurichten, weil sie uns in mehreren Dimensionen hilft, 42 Regionen in 11 Ländern zu dokumentieren, was wir schon geschafft haben, aber auch was wir in Zukunft vorhaben. Darauf möchte ich am Ende meines kurzen Statements noch einmal eingehen. Kann im Verhältnis zu Brandenburg, zu Minister Gerber, nur ergänzen, dass es in Sachsen-Anhalt und im mitteldeutschen Braunkohlerevier, gelegen südlich von Halle und Leipzig, einen ähnlichen disruptiven Prozess absolvieren mussten in den letzten gut 25 Jahren. Wir hatten seinerzeit vor der deutschen Wiedervereinigung 60.000 Arbeitnehmerinnen und Arbeitnehmer in Beschäftigung, in direkter Beschäftigung in der Braunkohlewirtschaft, in den Bergbauunternehmen unseres Landes. Davon sind jetzt 4.000 Arbeitnehmer und Arbeitnehmer direkt übergeblieben, ohne dass es eine Idee gab, wie man diesen Prozess begleiten konnte. Insofern kann ich nur sagen, dass wir, wenn wir uns hier an dieser Stelle mit diesem Thema befassen, genau das Richtige tun. Wir haben uns natürlich auch in den letzten Jahren schon überlegt, wie man insbesondere wirtschaftspolitisch diesen Systembruch abfedert. Und wenn man sich die Entwicklung der Branchen in Sachsen-Anhalt anschaut, dann wird einem bewusst, dass insbesondere die chemische Industrie bei uns einen ganz maßgeblichen Stellenwert einnimmt. Wir haben mit den großen Chemieparks bei uns in der Region, Leuna, Schkopau, aber auch Zeitz und Bitterfeld, Wolfen Chemieparks, die exzellent sich entwickelt haben in den letzten Jahren und dafür gesorgt haben, dass ein Teil dieser Arbeitsplatzverluste dort in diesen Regionen, in dieser Branche kompensiert werden konnten, dort also Weiterbeschäftigung möglich war. Das war für uns dann letztlich technologisch auch Grundlage, sich damit auseinanderzusetzen, was war denn Ursache dafür, dass diese Chemieparks entstanden sind seinerzeit vor über 100 Jahren, und das war an dieser Stelle bei uns in Mitteldeutschland schlicht die Braunkohle. als Energieträger einerseits natürlich, und da fühlen wir uns in der Pflicht, den Klimaschutzplan der Bundesregierung, aber auch sonstige Vorgaben umzusetzen. Andererseits möchte ich Ihnen kurz in einem Beispiel demonstrieren, dass es sich lohnt, über eine stoffliche Verwertung von Kohle erneut nachzudenken. Denn das war Ursache dafür, dass bei uns eine ganze Chemiebranche entstanden ist. Wir haben in den letzten 3 Jahren, zwischen 2011 und 2014, mit einem Einzelprojekt bewiesen, dass es durchaus sinnvoll ist, noch einmal über stoffliche Verwertung in ganzen chemischen Stoffverbünden nachzudenken. Und es wissenschaftlich federführend war seinerzeit das Fraunhofer bewiesen, dass das funktioniert. Im Übrigen haben wir in Sachsen-Anhalt mit Romonta auch ein Unternehmen, was seit über 100 Jahren Montanwachse herstellt aus Braunkohle und im Wesentlichen keiner thermischen Verwertung zuführt. Das ist für uns eine Idee, ein neues Projekt zu initiieren. Wir haben das Carbotrans genannt, um zu dokumentieren, dass wenn man Braunkohle als stofflichen Rohstoff einsetzt, durchaus Verwendung finden kann und damit natürlich eine Weiterbeschäftigung von Arbeitnehmerinnen und Arbeitnehmern in der Region in Braunkohletagebauen bei uns, die es möglich macht, CO2-arm oder CO2-neutral diese Stoffe in unsere Industrie mit einzubinden. Denn das hat mir besonders gut vorhin gefallen von den Kollegen aus Griechenland und Polen, dass wir über Industriepolitik, insbesondere auch in diesem Kontext, nachdenken müssen. Und das bedeutet für mich, unsere Branchen in Sachsen-Anhalt zu stärken. Insofern, das möchte ich zum Schluss noch ergänzen, kann ich mich nur meinem Vorredner, Minister Gerber, anschließen, der für einen mehrjährigen Förderrahmen, der sicher ist, wirbt, aber auch wettbewerbsrechtlich für einfache Regelungen, auch nationale Mittel nach europäischem Beihilferecht einzusetzen, die es uns ermöglichen, unsere Industrie, unseren Strukturwandel auch zu begleiten. Wenn spezielle Fondslösungen notwendig werden, sind wir natürlich bereit, auch darüber nachzudenken. Ich kann Sie nur einladen, von den Stakeholdern her. Die Braunkohleplattform hat es bereits eingangs erwähnt, die Region zu besuchen, Ihnen das zu zeigen, was wir vorhaben, was wir als Ideen haben, dass sozusagen der europäische Ansatz hier nicht nur eine Einbahnstraße bleibt, sondern durchaus ein Austausch unter den Regionen initiiert wird. Abschließend mein Dank noch einmal, dass es auch ein wichtiges Signal aus Europa in unsere Region ist, dass sich mit diesem Sachverhalt beschäftigt wird. Herzlichen Dank.
I give the floor to Mrs. Studnicza.
Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to have the chance to be here today and I'm gonna describe it briefly. I don't know how much you know about the Consultative Commission on Industrial Change, but it's a direct successor of the European Coal and Steel Community, because this coming to the end 15 years ago, a lot of people thought that all the knowledge, information, experience and competences actually gathered there throughout the 50 years shouldn't be just lost. So actually the CCMI has been created within the European Economic and Social Committee, actually to observe, follow and discover on the industrial change, which is actually what we are talking here about. We are talking about essential energy transformation in Europe, which is a must, we all know it, but it brings, and it has been described today quite largely, a lot of problems, potential problems, but of course also opportunities. We did some 1.5 years ago in May 2016 an own initiative opinion on the ingenious coal in the EU energy transition. They're actually gonna quote from the conclusions. We need to support the regions which are dependent on coal mining, to help them to make a strategy or plan for restructuring of the region, to be able to prepare and adapt to changes. The strategy should be based on dialogue, on investment, on development, on innovation and on education. And what is of paramount importance is the involvement of all the stakeholders, which mean the regional administration, the governments, of course, social partners, NGOs, and other interested parties, because actually then the proposed solution has to be based on very wide consensus. Otherwise, you can have money, you can have finance, but it just won't work. We stressed in our opinion that in the EU we've got basically two types of coal regions. Regions where the mining is phased out or finished, and we've got regions with the potential of longer-term mining. So the future needs to go in two directions. In the regions where the coal mining has been phased out, we need to focus on social programs, on requalifications, on restructuring, and transformation of the region. And in the second type of the regions, we need to concentrate on more effective, less polluting, and alternative use of coal. We need to go by modernizing, innovations, and clean coal technologies. And of course, development, research and development are playing a very important role. At the beginning of this year, we did have a high-level debate on coal mining regions with the participation of the European Commission, European Parliament, and of course representatives from the coal mining regions and social partners, respectively trade union representatives, where we make an exchange of information from transformation regions in Spain, Germany, Romania, Poland, and the Czech Republic. We acknowledge that all the regions are having its specifics, but there is a lot of common in number of these. We need to exchange best practices, but at the same time, and it's of the same value, are information on the barriers, on the lack of cooperation, not using the transformed areas, on failures, on mistakes and blind ways to be able to avoid in the future and in other regions. So as conclusions, we have recommended to organize roundtables exactly in the respective regions and to involve all the important stakeholders, governmental ones, regional, local, municipal, the business people, trade unions, and NGOs. We have planned for the next year, for 2018, 3 roundtables, and after evaluation at the end of the year, we plan to continue in the next year. I would like to say that really being happy that the Commission is launching this initiative, we should try to avoid to duplicate our effort. So rather try to be complementing and to bring the most full picture which is possible. As we are an organization which is having the representation of the business people, of the trade unions, and of the various interests with all different NGOs and other stakeholders, we are really good in bringing people together. So I guess we can try to concentrate on involving the different parties, on the social dialogue and the contribution of social partners. I hope that with this initiative we are going to be able all together to mainstream the different efforts we have heard about today already, to be able to interlink the information, different strategies, source of financing, and we are going to progress in the regions we all know might be problematic, but I hope are having a very bright potential for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor right to Wolfgang Schisslik.
Ministers, representatives of the regional authorities, Mr. Ehlert, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you today. The European Association for Coal and Lignite was established in 2002 It grew out of earlier associations that can trace their history back to the birth of European Union, the Treaty of Paris in 1951. Today we represent over 30 members from 18 countries. Looking to the future, we wish to contribute to a strong and dynamic Europe during the energy transition. This short introduction. We're here today to support actions that will bring economic stability in the core regions and secure jobs. I want to underline that it's not only a social issue. It is also a question of the innovations needed for the future and of solving the energy economics questions. We also want to present our ideas for utilizing CO2 in a circular economy, and that can be finally used for every fossil fuel. Sure, in some regions, the coal industry will continue to support thriving communities for decades to come, but in others, the industry is shrinking and regions must adapt. So Eurocall welcomes the European Commission's proposal to tackle the changes taking place in the coal regions with a targeted European platform involving industry. The concept paper being developed by the Commission will provide us with good advice on the use of existing EU financial instruments and how to share best practices. The energy transition is not going to happen overnight, so we must anticipate a period of transition with some regions changing more quickly than others. Many EU member states are dependent on coal for electricity. On average, 25% of EU electricity comes from coal and lignite. The energy transition will take longer in some countries like Poland, the Czech Republic, Bulgaria, Germany, and Greece. They benefit from their own coal and lignite resources, often supplemented by imported coal. Coal is also the economic basis for industrial production and district heating, so we need to look at how these valuable natural resources can contribute to the energy transition and not just leave it in the ground. The question then is how to marry coal use with climate targets. The important question for the future is how to ensure energy supply security. And the growth of renewables bring a higher volatility in the system. Look at the stresses we have in Germany grid. With our buffer of conventional thermal power generation, we can't guarantee security of supply. And for decades, thermal power plants will be the storage needed to compensate for huge volatility. To make the transition of the energy system a success, there is no model to follow. So we have to go step by step and carefully evaluate the drivers of this development, their impacts and their costs. But the changes in coal industry are already very real. So there is a need to support change in the affected regions without creating industrial deserts and social problems, nor risking energy security. The cooperation of industry is a must. The coal industry has, on the one hand, experience with recultivation, water treatment, mine gases, and with operations and maintenance. On the other hand, the industry knows about the social issues, such as redundancy and pension liabilities. Cooperation will decrease costs and widen the range of ideas to reshape the coal region in an evolutionary manner. Revolutionary change would be very expensive. The revolution that we do need is a technology serving the ongoing needs of the thermal power sector in combination with the need for liquid fuels such as kerosene for aircraft. All with a significant reduction of the carbon footprint. Therefore, a stable regulatory framework is necessary, as well as the right support of R&D on, for example, synthetic fuels made out of CO2 from coal plants. At the same time, we should explore how coal and lignite can be better used as raw materials for the direct production of fuels and chemicals. Producing chemicals, plastics, and liquid fuels with zero emissions is a major challenge, but we have solutions. Most of the pieces of the puzzle are already there. The sites, the fuel supplies, the customers, and the manpower. Carbon capture and use is a piece missing from the puzzle. This could be a big step forward to modernize core regions like Ruhr area and Silesia. Indeed, we want to present these very concrete plans in detail and learn more about the possibilities for support from the European Union. We are keen to start developing pilot projects. New technologies will also be good for the rest of the world, especially in countries such as India and China, where coal will dominate for a long time to come. Do remember that 65% at the moment of electricity is based on fossil fuels worldwide. The R&D is needed to reduce greenhouse emissions from power plants, from industry, and from transport. I'm pleased to announce that Europol will partner with some of the best R&D institutes in Europe to develop a new research agenda for coal that builds on what has already been done, but shifts the direction of research towards new solutions that respond to today's political imperatives. We are grateful that Research Fund for Coal and Steel, managed by the European Commission, has selected the coal technology for 2051 project. It means that we can look forward to the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Paris in 2051 with a new vision for coal at the end. New coal technologies are just one part of the story. We must also address how former coal mining regions can develop. Our future is about delivering results, and that includes proper land restoration and the regeneration of former mine sites with new economics activities. I hope that gives you a flavor of where the coal industry stands today and of what we have in store for the future. The initiatives on the coal regions being launched today will help us to cooperate more and to work for a better future for all Europeans. I commend it. Thank you.
Mrs. Kirsten Dunlop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ehler. I represent Climate Kick. As you rightly mentioned, Climate Kick is one of the knowledge innovation communities funded by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. We were created in 2010. We are a network of partners, public and private, all over Europe, and in fact, in some cases beyond Europe. And that encompasses industry, small and medium enterprise, startups, cities, regional governments, local governments and national governments, and big business. Our objective is to address the societal challenge and economic challenge of climate change, not only in terms of decarbonization, but also in terms of adaptation, and to do so through innovation. And I refer to the comment that was made earlier, which I think is essential, and that is, how do we address these challenges in such a way that it is not an either-or question, it is a both-and question. The work that we do is to support, to facilitate, to catalyze innovation at the interface of experimentation and application. What that means is bringing to life a sense of possibility and reality, tangible reality, for individuals living in areas where they know change is necessary but feels very difficult. And we're doing so in 2017 in a context where Europe is not on track, where the things that are easy have been done, and the hard things now remain to be done, and those hard things require wholesale, radical transformation and systems change. And for that we need the solutions that we have not yet looked for and not yet applied, that give us a very different approach to experimentation and application. We also need scaling, and for that we need policy, industrial policy ambitious enough and broad-based enough and interdisciplinary enough to help us scale across regions. Climate Kick and the EIT very much welcomes this initiative on behalf of the Energy Union and on behalf of the Commission, because it offers the kind of holistic framework around the work that is necessary in order to help bring innovation practically to bear in the lives of people living in areas that need to transition away from carbon-intensive industries. And I would bring into this discussion a concept that I haven't yet mentioned yet, which is the question of carbon budgets. We do believe passionately that coal needs to stay in the ground, that this is a question of equity, not only equity for the future, but equity for the present globally. We simply cannot afford to use up disproportionately our emissions budget globally. So that leads us to initiatives such as, for Climate Kick, our new reindustrialized platform, which is being launched this year, which is an example of how we propose to take this forward. And this is a program that is working explicitly through the European Institute of Innovation and Technology's Regional Innovation Scheme, where we are extremely active and plan to become even more active, to directly address regions in Europe that require fast transition away from carbon-intensive businesses, to create a framework around them that supports the opportunity to leapfrog, to think about the requalification of industrial models, of business models, of social models, not only in terms of a slow incremental transition away, but in terms of the possibility to rebuild or to build from scratch end-to-end solutions, leveraging the new technologies that we have, leveraging the extremely low price of renewables, the shockingly low price of renewables. If you look at the original European energy policy, the assumptions there that it could not possibly have become as cheap as it is, to establish a knowledge brokerage hub, networks, and a safe experimental space for the reconversion of whole industrial areas, building from scratch, leveraging, in fact, the assets that are there. And I acknowledge and welcome the comments of my colleague from Silesia with respect to there are assets here. There are assets of hardworking people trained in industrial disciplines. There are assets of infrastructure. If we take the example of something like Novamont, working with petrochemical refineries to convert them into whole infrastructural systems for bioplastics, there are huge opportunities to leverage what assets we have and leverage and bring together a full systems of innovation to build new economic systems and new industrial systems. The Climate Kick Reindustrialised Programme will be working closely together with the Commission to bring together research organisations, private organisations and the public sector engaged in our community to catalyse two outcomes going together: helping to make the environmental transition away from carbon-intensive activities and addressing the social challenge posed by an accompanying economic transition by experimenting and pathing ourselves the way forward to alternative transition paths. It has two parallel frameworks: later stage innovation projects, what we call demonstrators and scalers, to look at the scaling mechanisms for the technologies and social innovation models we already have available, and a flagship composed of early and late stage projects with a call that is open at the moment and will close on January the 12th and be awarded in early February. We are targeting key coal producers and other carbon-intensive regions in Europe and will share outcomes and experiences as the program moves forward. We are talking closely with the Malopolska region, with Upper Silesia, with Lodz region and Pomorska region. And we will be working increasingly more with the Czech Republic as well. In addition to that, we are working through an extensive program of education, from transitioning, reskilling, and upskilling workers, and again here looking at combining generational effects, reverse mentoring, the opportunities to think about people coming into a workforce and people transitioning through the mature stages of their workforce life, mentoring each other and learning from each other as we look at unusual ways of putting together the resources we have, whether that's distributed grids, smart, the structuring of renewable energies in such a way that we get much more flexible demand, but also the structuring of economic and business models in such a way that they are much more flexibly capable of leveraging tacit assets and latent assets. And that includes the latent assets of skills and mindsets. We are actively supporting the European Economic and Social Committee recommendations to take the lead in bearing a systems perspective to bear on this. And I will end with a plea from our part as we walk forward, creating the platforms for these kinds of active experimentation on the ground and implementation of scaling solutions for alternative industrial models, that decarbonisation policies be established on a systematic evaluation of cause and effect, working across silos and across industries instead of working within narrow regions. And there I see a huge opportunity for EU regional policy to think about bringing regions together to share resources, to share learnings and to share assets, instead of tending to operate still in independently financed silos. Thank you.
Mr. Mark Mohiney.
Okay. My name is Mark Mawhinney. I am the head of the European Investment Advisory Hub, which is a joint initiative between the European Investment Bank and the European Commission. The hub itself tends to concentrate support or target support on the early stage of investable projects. It's part of the Juncker Plan. And the Juncker Plan was created because of this belief, as Commissioner Cretu said, that there weren't enough good, mature projects coming through the system, and that those ideas, good ideas that needed to come through, needed a bit of help to start off with. So that's the purpose behind the hub. Like many people who were invited here, I think I was a bit thrown by the agenda and trying to work out why I was here in the first place. But in the introductions that we've heard, it's become a little bit clearer to me. Why? Well, really, one of the other reasons why I was here is because we had a large discussion across the bank, both with the senior politicians who run the bank, and with the technical experts in the projects directorate. And we decided that my experience, and it was my experience based on the fact that I've been involved in regeneration in coal mining areas for 7 or 8 years before I joined the bank. And then I had a strange job in Oxford creating new businesses and creating new jobs from the back of research and development. So that combination of the two was why I was selected to come here rather than someone more senior. Now, what I would say is that I'm glad to see that you split the two working groups into two, because that's what threw us, I think, when we first got the agenda. Regeneration areas need diversification. We've heard some very, very good background from people talking about the fact that, for example, Nick talked about risk, and how these regeneration areas need certainty, they need planning. That's certainly very true, and what I saw in South Yorkshire and the north of England is very, very much that was the case. So regeneration is one area, innovation in coal and research and development is another. Why do I see the separation? Well, very, very simply, I worked at Oxford. Oxford is one of the most successful universities in the world. In terms of our success rate, in terms of creating new businesses from R&D, it was 1 in 10. That is 10%. That is not a successful rate that would be good for regeneration. By all means do both, but do them separately. It's important that we, with regeneration and the regeneration of areas, that you're aware that it's about social change, it's about the need for finance, it's about the need for environmental change, it's about political ownership. It's all those things that is in that summary of the report that was put together before this workshop. So it's important that we learn the lessons. Nick made reference to the fact that coal mining areas that sit beside urban areas stand a better chance of success, and that's correct. They need that catalyst. Kirsten mentioned the idea of leapfrog, and the European Regional Development Funds, the cohesion funds, were very good at setting up those things, although I have to say that in my experience in them, sometimes the leapfrog was blocked by mature institutions. So there's a whole range. This is a multifaceted problem. So, as I said, what I think we need to do is we have to learn the lessons in moving forward. And I'll leave it at that.
So I try to trigger a little bit the discussion by a first question, which is, I mean, we're talking about a wide range of technologies. We're talking about technologies which are very closely related to the industry. So that would be, let's say, clean coal technologies, that would be modernization technologies. Then we talk about a second perspective that might be, I would say, change technologies, that would be usage for like CCU, so others would be gasification. And then we would talk about a third dimension, and there we talk really about change management and new technologies. But when we had been heard that we have a lot of money, which is obviously a little bit worrisome for the taxpayer to say that, but I mean, in practical terms, we tried to allocate money to the CCU project, but we failed economically because we wouldn't know it's price related. We wouldn't know what is the market price. We changed in terms of the regulatory framework. So what is from your perspective, the most promising first step? I mean, what is really technology-wise, regulatory-wise, and in terms of the question to what extent an existing industry which is making profit is interesting in taking risks in starting new technologies. So what are the low-hanging fruits, so to say? What is expectable to do in the next few years? Because otherwise, if we open it completely to everything, we talk about everything, but we might not be able to focus the instruments, to focus investment strategies, to focus joint effort to the regulatory framework. And I would like to give the word to Mr. Selig for the first time and then open the round, because you are the existing industry, and I mean, what is your idea about the near future?
Thank you. That'd be a good team. Ich mache es in Deutsch, das ist besser. Ich glaube, man muss sich die Frage stellen, was ist unser Ziel? Es geht hier nicht darum, ob ich Kohle einsetzen möchte oder nicht und darüber vielleicht ideologisch zu denken. Es geht darum, was wir brauchen, das habe ich eben gemeint im Vortrag, unsere Versorgungssicherheit sicherzustellen. Und es sind ja einfach nur Fakten, die wir aufmetern. Und wenn wir sehen, dass wir eben noch für lange Jahre, ob wir das wollen oder nicht, noch thermische Energie brauchen, ich lege mich gar nicht so fest, dann ist es etwas, was man würdigen muss in der ganzen Verantwortung vor der Stabilisierung des Netzes. Und deswegen braucht man auch Lösungen dafür. Und ich glaube, dass man diesen Schritt erreichen muss, wenn man sagt, wir haben CO2-Neutralität erreichen. Wenn wir das tun, ist das schon viel. Wenn ich quasi aus der Verbrennung keinen zusätzlichen, Schaden für die Atmosphäre schaffe, dann wäre das ein wichtiger Schritt. Dies zu kombinieren, mit CCS, was versucht worden ist, das wegzulegen, ist ja wegschieben, hat nicht funktioniert. Da gibt es auch Ängste für, müssen wir nicht schauen. Es gibt aber Technologien, wir haben das in einem der Partner hier, also in meinem Unternehmen, an einem kleinen Standort praktiziert, CO2 abzuspalten. RWE macht es auch. Und wir können es eben zuführen in verschiedene Medien, die wir brauchen. Und dieses eben umwandeln in, in Methanol, in Kerosin. Das war der Vorschlag, es in Medien umzuwandeln, die auf der einen Seite eine Volkswirtschaft unabhängiger machen. Dann brauche ich das nicht aus anderen Gebieten rannehmen, denn ich werde noch lange nicht mit Batterien fliegen. Das glaube ich einfach nicht. Dann brauche ich also Kerosin, dann ist dieser Teil neutral. Und wenn man das im Auge hat und dafür, auch Support bietet, dann glaube ich, kann man sehr schnell auch zu dem Thema kommen, dass wir eine sichere Versorgung verbinden mit einer CO2-armen, freien Situation. Der reine Wandel, das ist jedenfalls die Meinung, die man auch nachvollziehen kann, nur von Kohle zu Gas bringt ja nichts, weil ich immer noch netto über 50% Emissionen habe. Auch Methan, wie jeder weiß, hat Kohlenstoff in der Formel und führt auch zu CO2. Also von daher die Frage, die wir ehrlich beantworten müssen, wollen wir CO2-Neutralität, Reduktion, ich sage mal Ziel Null, dann ist es ein Schritt, den wir heute leisten können und der würde uns auf dem Weg 40%, 20, wann auch immer, deutlich schneller nach vorne bringen. Und ich glaube, wir haben die Technologien, wir können das machen. Das ist Unternehmen, die das auch wollen. Die Frage ist nur, wir haben natürlich eine Verzerrung im Strommarkt, das müssen wir einfach sehen. Wir haben eine relativ Feed-in-Tariff-Situation in Deutschland, das bringt die Preise unter Druck. Und wenn wir dies jetzt initiieren wollen, dann wäre es der richtige Zeitpunkt, dort auch, ich sage mal, investiv zu unterstützen, damit die Unternehmen reingehen. Man kann das auch verbinden, auch nochmal aus der ökologischen Sicht heraus, wenn wir, und das CHP, also KWK, ist ja auch ein Thema, was ich glaube ökologisch und politisch gesehen sehr gut getragen wird, das zu verbinden mit CHP-Anlagen führt auch zu CO2-freier Wärme. Also auch wenn man das in der Diktion weiterdenkt, wo wir hinwollen, vielleicht ein wichtiger Schritt. Deswegen haben wir gesagt, darüber muss man sich verständigen. Ist man bereit, dieses Ziel zu akzeptieren? Ich will aus dem CO2 bestmöglich raus, auch in der fossilen Steuerung. Dann wäre das ein Weg, den wir sehr gerne unterstützen wollen, auch wo wir wissen, dass und dahinter den Euro stecken ja auch Unternehmen, nicht nur Associations, dass die bereit sind, diesen Weg auch zu gehen und das auch zu supporten, weil wir einfach glauben, dass das ein Schritt ist, der für die nächsten Jahre uns viel schneller zu einer CO2-Minderung bringt, als die Diskussion um weiteren Ausbau der Erneuerbaren. Ohne ökologischen Streit.
Ich werde mal in der Runde fortfahren und mich an Herrn Wünsch wenden und ohne das deutsche Beispiel überzustrapazieren. Es gibt seit praktisch 50 Jahren das mitteldeutsche Chemiedreieck. Technologisch sprechen wir vom Fischer-Tropf-Verfahren. Das ist ein Verfahren, was im Grunde genommen aus den 20er Jahren des vorherigen Jahrhunderts stand. Es hat immer die Technologie, den Traum sozusagen der Weiternutzung gegeben. Letztendlich war aber natürlich immer die Frage, inwieweit sozusagen diese Technologien auch mit einem Markt verbunden sind. Wir haben ja die großen Industriegashersteller in Europa, Linde, waren ja zunächst mal auch zurückhaltend, was die Frage betrifft, sozusagen der Weiternutzung und der Investition in solche Technologien. Sie stammen aus einer Region, wo in der Mitte Europas sozusagen beides vorhanden ist, eine Kohleindustrie und eine chemische Industrie. Wie realistisch scheint denn in der Perspektive die Weiternutzung und welche Förderung, wenn es denn die Förderung ist, die das Problem ist, müssten wir denn sozusagen haben, um dieses Projekt, was so lange läuft, aber nur zu einer bestenfalls mittleren Blüte gekommen ist, wirklich dahingehend zu entwickeln, dass CCU eine realistische Option ist?
Eine realistische Option wird es und kann es werden, wenn die Rahmendaten für die Energieträger Öl und Kohle gleichmäßig verteilt sind. Und natürlich kann man nicht in den Markt eingreifen. Das ist, glaube ich, sehr unrealistisch. Das, was wir versuchen wollen mit der Fortentwicklung, ist, dass wir das, was wir an Rohstoff haben, nämlich einen durchaus anderen vom Gehalt als in anderen Regionen, als in der Lausitz zum Beispiel oder in der Region in Nordrhein-Westfalen. Und das praktizieren ja einige unserer Unternehmen vor Ort, durchaus nutzen kann, um beispielsweise Wachse herzustellen, aber auch nutzen kann. Kollege von Steag hat es angesprochen, natürlich Kerosin oder ähnliche flüssige Stoffe zu entwickeln. Was wir aber wollen, ist Braunkohle als stofflichen Träger in ein Verfahren einzubinden, der etwas komplexer funktioniert, nämlich Grundstoffe für die chemische Industrie, für die Kunststoffindustrie zu gewinnen, und zwar in einem wirtschaftlichen Rahmen. Wir haben die Möglichkeit, in den Chemieparks in einem Stoffverbund zu arbeiten, der Braunkohle als nur einen Teil in dieser Gesamtsystematik impliziert und daneben, das Stichwort ist schon gefallen, die Kreislaufwirtschaft, nämlich Abfälle mit integriert, in der Art sie auch wiederum einer Verwertung zuzuführen und das Ganze so organisiert, das ist im industriellen Modellmaßstab gelungen, das Ganze CO2-arm oder CO2-neutral darzustellen. Das wollen wir ganz gerne im Rahmen eines solchen Chemieparks, nämlich in einer Größenordnung, von dem man dann sprechen kann, dass es eine industrielle Anwendung ist, die sich dann auch wirtschaftlich lohnt, durchaus ausprobieren. Und dazu ist, glaube ich, für den Staat ein Maß an Förderung wichtig und notwendig. Wenn uns das gelingt, wird es einen Punkt geben, dass wir das zurückzahlen können. Und das ist unsere Idee dahinter.
Vielleicht darf ich mich nochmal an I'd like to address Mrs. Dunlop on the nature of the kick. I mean, almost not very familiar in the member state. The nature of the EIT is that there's a triangle of education, entrepreneurship, universities, which is a new way to stipulate change. Being a German, and we don't have the slightest sense of humor and we can't cook, but we read the papers. I was looking to what extent the KIC would cooperate with transition regions. And you're rightly referring to your contacts to member states. But when I was looking around in the regions, the universities which are really in place in the region and could stipulate that kind of change from an academic or research part, I hardly found any allocation center in the Lausitz or more specifically than in Silesia and so on, so which are part of the, let's say, collocation centers and that possible network of a joint knowledge of change in terms of climate. So how realistic is that this instrument of the EIT or specifically the climate kick with the given budget or even a bigger budget one for that purpose, who could reach out to regional universities and create some kind of network with collocation centers we could serve then in the region as blueprints or as a way to stipulate the change management in the regions.
Thank you for the question. So I think this is the answer to this is a story of evolution, and an evolution that has accompanied contextual change. When the EIT was formed as a legacy of Barroso to Europe, seeking to create something equivalent to the US system of fast market transfer or transfer to market of blue chip research. I would describe, admittedly you must take into account that I'm entering this world from the southern hemisphere and relatively recently, but I would describe what I've seen as an extended experiment in seeking to create that kind of chemistry that comes through good cooking with the ingredients of research and entrepreneurship and innovation, with, however, a focus particularly on a sense of what's possible, operating as the closest innovation instrument to market. In the case of Climate Kick, our context in the last 7 years, since when we were founded, has changed notably. We are operating now with framework agreements globally, with a set of targets, and with I will reiterate, a sense of concern about the extent to which we're on track to meet a lot of those commitments globally. And that framework and that context has shifted for us a sense of to what use do we place the investment that is given to us to fund innovation. And particularly what we have done this year is to dedicate attention to really asking ourselves what innovation and where is innovation most needed to help Europe effect the exponential shifts it needs to effect to get to less than 95% carbon emissions with respect to current levels by 2050, and if not earlier. And that has led us to conduct, for example, for the course of the year, a full-scale market entry design and strategy for the Central and Eastern European region, looking not to depart from the last 7 years of transfer of excellence, but looking to depart from the opposite end of deeply understanding local needs, concerns, what are the ways in which the countries of Europe, in the eastern part of Europe, how do they frame up the problem? Is it climate change, or is it in fact air pollution? Is it decarbonisation, or is it economic transition and cohesion, which can be solved with climate positive solutions? And we will be rolling out, as of January, the fruits of that year-long of research across the full region, so that we will be present by the end of 2018 in all 28 regions. And we have actively worked with governments, with regions, with councils, and with universities to understand where is their passion and appetite and capacity to build on local assets and to look for creating the enabling infrastructures for systems change and systemic innovation that works very closely at the interface of policy and innovation, so that we can address the concerns that we indeed have around leapfrog, aspirations for leapfrog that get blocked, or indeed help to feed experiential loops, learning loops, into European policy. For example, we're concerned that current EU policy does not address the issue of overcapacity in coal production, which is holding back investments in renewables. Are there ways in which we can help feed in examples on the ground of what's possible, working with local institutions, for why the incentivization of unlocking the potential of renewables might be more appropriate? And I would just want to connect this response to the conversation earlier. I think one of the intriguing things to think about is there are examples from all over the world to learn from. There are a number of examples of the resilience and redundancy available in distributed energy production, and the extent to which unlocking distributed energy production with technologies like blockchain enables constant use of the grid, which therefore addresses the issues of being concerned about decommissioning the grid, the fear of industrial mechanisms of having to do that. We are also, as a society, very used to the imperative of a market logic, decommissioning hundreds and thousands of people's jobs, because it's more economically interesting to move to a different business model. In this case, we have an alignment between an economic need and a political and an existential need to accept some of that and work out how do we actively invest through local partnerships and through local capability building some of those exponential transitions, this time not driven by the market, but driven by our own need to live better and to survive.
So we have just a few minutes left, but also the Germans have the Italian moment, so you might grant us another 5 minutes to get the other two panelists involved. I would start with Mr. Mohini and the question, and you're in very close contact with regional public banks, and it's, I mean, I think the understanding is that the EIB is not the new racing horse. I mean, it's a joint and embedded process of financing. I mean, what in terms of change technologies, I mean, what is the real appetite of the market in terms of loans? So what do you see? Is there a market failure which should be coped with by public banks, either regional or on the European level? What would be the interaction between regional public banks and, let's say, the European funds? And is there any perception in terms of figures how much money we would need if you think about, let's say, 2 or 3 decades, which might be the lifespan of that kind of change in the big coal regions?
Okay. You've asked a question which is right at the core of some of the Juncker Plan ideas just at the moment, and that is the belief that there should be more coalitions or more partnerships between national promotional banks or regional banks and the European level bank, such as the European Institution Bank. There is a belief that bringing those two together will create more opportunity. The difficulty is in trying to work out how best to do that, because they have different agendas, and one of the things that we constantly see in the hub is the issue of prioritization. We have a situation really where the European Commission and the European Union works on a sort of a 5 or 6 year plan, but a lot of the member states Some in particular change their government every year, or ministers change every 6 months. And therefore the priorities change and get mixed up and all of those things. So while that's not directly related to what we're talking about today, be it climate change or regeneration of transition areas, it is a factor, quite a substantial factor that sits there in the background. One other factor that I think sits in the background, you've raised the issue a couple of times about how there seems to be a mix of answers in terms of whether there's too much finance or not enough finance. One of the things that I observe, I'm not wholly involved in it, but I observe what's going on with MFF, and certainly at this point in time there is a view within the Commission that absorption of money in the member states is not taking place at the rate that it should be, and therefore there is money available. But post 2020, they are looking at, and I hear figures of minus 20%, etc. So if we're looking forward, then there's not huge amounts of money. If we're looking at where we are now, then possibly there is. Yeah. So.
Thank you. I'm saluting the importance of the regions. I would like to give the last question to Mrs. Studnica, which might be a little bit of a poisoned present, because I mean, considering that your job is a little bit monitoring what's happening on the regional or national scale, and on the other side having that as an institution, that kind of European perspective. I mean, where do you see the role in perspective of the Union? I mean, we were addressing a variety of instruments. We have 20% of this research program in the energy challenge, which are preserved for, let's say, conventional energy and transformation. We have the structural funds. We have research-related institutions like the EIT, which are more of a structural and nature. We have now the new 2 funds in the framework of the ETS. We have a lot of specific instruments. We have financial instruments and so on. So on the other hand, I mean, there is change management in the regions. There are national politics, there are national change politics, but there is also a backing of member states or regions for their coal industry. So what would, in perspective, be the role of the Union? I mean, every time we would refer to a lot of instruments, we usually would refer to a one-stop agency, which is the first thing to do. Sometimes it's a good idea, I think, because then the regions get a better overview what are the offers from the Union. But from a more structural perspective, what could be the role of the EU instruments or EU industrial policy in relation to regional or national politics?
Well, that's a good question. And, well, I mean, our role is actually not to observe or to supervise, I mean, the regions, you know. That was our own initiative, you know, to go into this issue, but it is important. And I mean, we have been building on the knowledge, rather perception at the beginning, but on the knowledge how different are the different regions and the different localities in Europe with mining. So actually we need tailor-made solutions, but these are actually not possible without exploring enough really the concrete conditions on the spot. As the history has been different, you know, the national solutions that have been introduced, they're going different directions, different pace, and I mean, what is really needed, and where I would see really the big role for the Union or for this platform, actually to be able to rather share the blind roads, I mean the failures, because this is really important, because I mean, the region might perceive that this might be the way forward, but to be able to share the information that it was not the case in very comparable or similar conditions is of a great value. So I mean, the coordinating role and information dissemination, experience sharing is so important and could really work and save a lot of money, effort, and especially time, which is an aspect we have to really take into account very seriously. Would for me be really the potential we should be using to its full.
So, Madam Chair, I have the privilege to give the whole operation back to you. I might just from the Parliament's perspective, I would like to thank colleagues. It had been an amazing collaborative approach between colleagues and political groups in the Parliament, which led to opening the discussion about, let's say, a transition fund and the technology fund. It was taken up by the Commission in an amazingly fast way. I mean, after some considerations with the Council, we ended up with a compromise in terms of ETS. But I think what's important is that Europe is not portraying in a very abstract way a role in that kind of change process. I think we should be relatively concrete, but also on the other hand realistic. And we can't substitute from the Parliament's perspective the Member States' efforts, but I think in terms we can contribute, and that might be that these issues are very much related in terms of a certain coordination. What is the regulatory framework? It has a lot to do with infrastructure, which is by nature on the common market a common market issue, or by national issue. That could be a role from the Commission, but also I think it would be important, given the complexity of the funding schemes, that we would have a kind of dedicated one-stop kind of address where you could get an idea if you're in a region, whether you be an entrepreneur or the regional administration, whether you be an NGO or whether you be from the academia, what is in range, realistically in range. And I think it's important that the EU is understanding that we don't want to add complexity to the process, that we want to add substantial a substantial contribution. And I think the way we set up the two funds in the framework of the ETS had been a substantial offer from the European level, but now we should think a little bit from a structural and strategic perspective what could be the EU contribution. I would like to thank the panelists, everyone who came here, and now I wave the floor to the chair.
Thank you very much, MEP Eller, for your very engaging chairing of the panel, and also for the intervention, the frank intervention of our panelists. And I would like to thank all of you for your interventions. We take note, obviously, of your conclusions. I also noted during the discussions the need to deliver on concrete projects and also to respect the bottom-up approach. So all these are threads that should guide us in our work and in the future work of this platform. I had explained at the beginning of this event that the weather misfortune have prevented some of the keynote speakers to be with us, and I have alluded to the fact that they are morally present with us. Now I have a surprise for you. Not only they are morally present, but virtually they will be present as well. VP Šefčovič, when coming back to his headquarters in Brussels, has immediately tried to record his intervention. And thanks to technology and innovation, we can actually have the benefit of his intervention now. And so you will see him on our screens just in a couple of seconds. So again, thank you all. And after this, vous êtes tous invités à un pot d'amitié dehors. Et je vous remercie encore pour vos interventions et pour vos discussions très riches que nous allons porter avec nous. Et je vous donne rendez-vous à la fin du mois de février où les groupes de travail seront lancés. Merci encore et très bonne soirée. Et le VP Šefčovič maintenant nous envoie son discours, son intervention.
Dear colleagues, greetings from Brussels to Strasburg to the launch of the platform for the coal regions in transition. Unfortunately, I cannot be there with you due to a surprising winter conditions. However, even from the distance, it's great honor for me to inaugurate this platform. I am also delighted to have such a high level and diverse attendance. This is in itself a forceful recognition of the imperative to push for the agenda of a just transition with the concrete actions and a long-term vision. There is no time to waste. Tomorrow, I will head the Commission's delegation in the Paris One Planet Summit convened by the President Macron. Together with the Commissioner Arias Cañete, we will showcase EU leadership in fighting climate change. So today's launch is very timely. On the eve of the Paris Summit, we want to send a message that we, in Europe, are working together to make sure that no region is left behind. In other words, Europe's ability to lead the global energy transition depends not only on the frontrunners. Our success also depends on making this fundamental transformation an inclusive one. To do this, we must demonstrate through concrete actions and their impact that this transition is not only about clean energy. It can also be a major economic and social opportunity for the regions and citizens which are the most directly affected by it. This is why in November last year we announced the Coal and Carbon Intensive Regions Initiative as one of the key actions accompanying the Clean Energy for All Europeans package. This key supporting action goes to show that through the Energy Union we are also delivering on the jobs, growth and investment agenda. This is not easy feat, as you know very well. We currently have 41 coal mining regions in 12 EU member states, facing similar but certainly not identical challenges. Some are more advanced than others in embarking on or even completing this transition. Some have chosen to phase out coal use for power generations. Some aim at robust economic diversification, ranging from agriculture to digital and clean tech. Others want to invest primarily in advanced coal technologies to reduce carbon footprint and eco-innovation to reduce air pollution. But all of them need to retain jobs and growth in communities affected by declining competitiveness of the coal industry. Coal mining provides direct employment to around 180,000 workers in the European Union compared to 240,000 in 2012. And let me be clear, this decline is in great part due to the lower coal consumption in Europe, increasing automation, comparatively higher extraction costs, and changing dynamics of the global trade. Decarbonization is only one driver of this change. So we must recognize the complexity of this challenge. There is seldom one single factor accounting for this trend. And so I'm afraid there will be no silver bullet, nor one-size-fits-all solution. Likewise, it is often impossible to separate environmental concerns from the fundamentals of our economic and social fabric. Throughout the Energy Union tour, I have met with mayors, marshals, regional presidents whose number one priority has become the fight against air pollution and health-related costs. This to them is sine qua non to prevent the youngsters from leaving and depopulating the communities for good. Young people, workers, investors, innovators, mayors, they all need some certainty as to which future, what journey they would be offered to them. What opportunities will be brought up by the industrial transition, with what means, and how they can be major actors of the strategies and projects developed in their regions. And again, to be very clear, this can and must be done primarily at the national and regional level. The Commission does not aim to replace the member states and regional authorities in steering this transition process. The ownership is theirs to have. This is why we have asked the member states to take a clear ownership of this transition through their national energy and climate plans. And today, I reiterate the point that these should be urgently prepared in consultations with all stakeholders, including at regional level. But the member states cannot develop these plans in silos. We are here today to kickstart the process whereby we all work better together to address the manifold challenges of the industrial transitions of coal regions. Our focus is not whether or what, but how. How can we optimize our cooperation? How can we better work together? And I would like to underline that there is a range of ways in which we, the Commission, can help. By creating the right conditions for investment to take place, by supplementing and leveraging support, by working in partnership with the member states and the regions, and by offering technical assistance when needed. By making use of our convening power, as is the case today with this platform. Concretely, we now want to work on the ground with all actors involved to test what is possible and should be done as a matter of urgency. To this end, we are setting up country teams in a set of pilot regions, and this is quite complementary to and will feed in the platform. These teams are demand-driven. We have already been asked by Poland, Slovakia and Greece to start working in and with the regions of Silesia, Trenčín and Western Macedonia. And I'm very happy that respective national ministers and the state secretaries have agreed to be with us today. As I mentioned before, the transition of coal regions goes well beyond energy and climate policy. Through our operational teams, we are looking at how to better integrate our different instruments. In each region, we aim to develop a customized approach combining energy and climate policy and instruments with support to emerging technologies through our research and innovation tools, for example, through Horizon 2020. We want to better mobilize our existing allocations under both the European Structural Investment Fund and our smart specialization strategies to exploit each region's innovation and competitiveness potential. We can help anticipate and address social consequences through our European Social Fund and our Globalization Adjustment Fund. Apply our skills agenda and accompany structural changes through targeted technical assistance, thanks to the Structural Reform Support Service. And I could continue. But the bottom line is, we are forging a new working method to see what instruments can be best used and how, taking into account regional specificities and the need to engage with a host of actors on the ground. Let me conclude by saying that because of the diversity of situations we are facing in the European Union's regions, our approach has to be at the same time tailor-made and holistic. Experience has shown over and over again that a successful transition must be collectively owned. Hence the launch of our platform today. It is multi-level and cross-sectoral. And of course, it couldn't come to life without key representatives of member states, regional representatives from Brandenburg, Silesia, Grand Est, and local authorities. But at the EU level, we are also working very closely with the European Parliament, and I want to praise President Buzek, Kathleen van Brandtforp, being very strong allies and representing the European Parliament as a first mover in this initiative, as they have already done for the Energy Union project itself. And I would like to thank you, Jerzy, for your great leadership in mobilizing significant financial support from the Parliament. Those thanks also go to you, dear Kathleen van Brandt, for your incredible support. I also want to insist on the important role that the Economic and Social Committee, represented here by Lucie Studničná, plays in involving the employees, employers and civil society. And last but not least, the actors of the transition that are here with us today. Trade unions from ETUC, federations like Eurocall, the innovation community represented by Climate Kick, investment partners from European Investment Advisory Hub, and our NGO partners and friends from E3G. We want to be ambitious, where there is a knowledge to be shared, exchange of good practices to be made, or partnerships to be built. We will do everything we can to help. The structural transformation of our coal regions is one of the greatest challenges of our generation, and a test case for success of our energy transition, and more largely, the industrial revolution. So I thank you for your attention and wish you a very fruitful session.
Merci, très bonne soirée, merci aux interprètes. Mais à Alex qui a beaucoup donné, et évidemment le fait qu'il y a eu tous ces changements.
Mais qu'est-ce que vous faites quand vous avez de la neige, quand vous avez... Mais vous avez très bien fait.
Merci.
D'une manière active, mais un peu douce, comme une femme, c'était très bien. Merci.
Merci, c'est très gentil et ça aide, parce que c'était pas prévu.
Non.
Je suis député européen pour les Verts, vers espagnol. Oui, vers espagnol, on a aussi pas mal de régions minières là-bas.
Oui, non, c'est très bien d'être là.
On n'a pas pu venir, malheureusement, aujourd'hui, il était...
C'est vraiment dommage, on attendait tellement de députés.
Il y avait Renard qui était là, Renard Butikhofer était là, moi j'étais là,